honor of the Four Nations finale tonight.
Yeah, it almost looks New Jersey Devils-ish, and then you look closer. Oh, that's the interlocking U. I love it.
It's a great piece. Utah Red Zone, the store, is where I got this.
You just need the face paint, then you're like David Putty. Go Devils!
I don't think we're ready for the 90s Seinfeld reference 3 minutes into the show. Not even 3 minutes. We're like 90 seconds into the show. That's James Peterson. He's
90s
producing.
is the best decade, as our guy Chris Camrani always says. So we should always be ready.
It's a great time to grow up and like be a young adolescent or an old adolescent. Gordy Chiesa is going to swing by in about half an hour. Not in studio today because it's a blizzard out there. Everyone drive safely, be careful, shovel your walks. Actually, there's a poll question for me, James. Are you team snowblower or are you team shovel?
I unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, depending on what team you're on, I've never had a snowblower, so I guess by default I'm team shovel, but I'm open to switching teams because I've heard the snowblowers are nice.
So, my dad had this joke that when we were kids, because he had 4 children, and when you're from the Midwest, there's like this sort of weird, perverse pride about being able to handle snow better than average folks. Both of my parents were born in Iowa, raised mostly in Iowa. And they took this odd satisfaction in seeing the neighbors have a harder time with the snow than we did. And one of our neighbors was like the gadget dude. He had the 4-wheelers, he had the dirt bikes, he had the really fancy, nice new snowblower. And he'd always be like, Tim, it's my dad's name. Tim, you got to get you one of these. And my dad's dad joke response would be like, I got a 4-horsepower snow removal system. And he pointed all of us out there in our ill-fitting boots and snow pants, struggling to shovel. Yeah.
Already a big fan of your dad's humor, as you might guess.
Yes.
Just based on that. No, so you're saying that handling the snow with the shovel is a source of pride for a segment of folk in the Midwest.
At least for my
or at least
my Depression era ethos parents who were not raised during the Depression. Obviously, they're not of that age group, but their parents came from that kind of. So yes, my parents were very much like the sweat of your brow and eat every piece of food on your plate. If they
didn't have shovels in the Depression, they'd be saying, use your hands.
That's exactly right.
Use what God gave you.
You know what we did to get rid of the snow? We ate it so we would have some hydration in our life. Like there was no excuse kind of a situation. So anyway, I would thought of that as I was shoveling the sidewalks this morning because I've strayed so far afield. This is going to embarrass my parents if they're listening. It's going to make some people judge me, but
Mr. and Mrs. O'Connell, go ahead and text us or call us 877-353-0700 if you have thoughts on what he's about to say.
Yes, Mom, Dad, please weigh in 877-353-0700 on the Dish Pros text line. So, the house we moved into 5 years ago now, the people who built this house were not team snowblower. They were not team shovel either. They were team install a heated driveway.
Oh, fancy team.
Very fancy.
Bougie team.
Like uber bougie team. All right. Now, I, of my blue collar parents, am somewhat ashamed to say that when there's snow coming, I just flip the double switches and bada bing, bada boom, the snow melts right off my driveway before I have to shovel it. I still got to do the sidewalks in the front porch and all that kind of stuff. But because of that, I can never go team snowblower. I don't have a driveway I have to take care of, so I got to stay with the shovel for the rest. So 877-353-0700 if you want to weigh in. On a snowy day, are you team snowblower or team shovel? And, of course, at Real OC Sports, the poll is up. It's only 2 answers. We got a lot to discuss on the show today. I already told you Gordy Chiesa was going to be joining us. Big breaking news in the NBA. Massively disappointing. Victor Wembanyama expected to miss the rest of the season because he's got some blood clot issues in his shoulder. San Antonio's not good yet, So this is not the end of the world yet. But if this becomes a chronic issue for Victor Wembanyama, and that is always one of the concerns when you have these extreme outlier physiques, these guys who are built like aliens, he's an avatar, he's different than everyone, is that going to be a problem long term? I really hope and pray for Victor Wembanyama and for the rest of the league and for all of us who enjoy watching him play that this does not become a thing that makes him miss several games a year. The NBA can ill afford right now in this moment more conversation about one of their best stars missing extended time. Like, this is the wrong time in NBA history, in the NBA season, with what's going on with the NHL, all of it. This is the wrong time for Victor Wembanyama to come up lame, so to speak. So not liking that. Jason Beck, new offensive coordinator for the University of Utah, is going to join us in our noon hour. Very much looking forward to that. So set your clocks and dial it in for noon. Belle Fraser is in Boston for the Four Nations finale tonight. Canada, USA, squaring off national pride, maple syrup, bragging rights, all of it on the line.
Maybe even the whole nation of Canada. We don't know.
Perhaps all provinces in Canada.
If our president has his way, supposedly has his way on that, maybe the whole nation of Canada is on the line. Although, like I said yesterday, there's no way we're reciprocating that. Like if we lose to Canada, there's no way we're saying, yeah, you can have us.
The thing is, Canada wouldn't be able to handle it anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
They could not successfully absorb all 50 states. We're far too problematic.
That's true.
You know?
They probably wouldn't want us.
Canada's like, well, you're basically getting, if you end up absorbing the entire nation of Canada, it's like you're adopting a dog sled team of Huskies, you know?
Yeah.
They might yap a little bit and they might bite you once in a while, but ultimately they're going to work in your favor, and it's going to be a huge addition to whatever you got going on.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
If Canada had to take on 50 American states, they would just be like, this is a mess. Can you imagine Canada trying to deal with California? California's like, we have more people than you and a larger economy than you.
Yeah, not to mention New York too. Like we almost cover more land area. No, that's not true. Canada's got some.
That's a big country.
That's a big country. It's not just the inhabited parts of Canada. That's Canada.
Canada would be, if Canada had to absorb the United States of America, they'd be like, "Ooh, yes, we got this. This is awesome." And at the end of the day, they'd be like, "Actually, we figured it out. All we want the Dakotas, we want Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and the most crowded we're going to go for is Utah."
Yeah, maybe Alaska.
They're like, we'll take Alaska.
If you want to give us Alaska, we'll take it too. The oil, the fact that it actually borders us, like it's actually closer to our borders than your borders. Yeah.
In any case, Four Nations going on tonight, the finale, and a lot of anticipation for this. We're going to get to it with Belle Fraser. We're going to talk about it throughout the show today. I do not remember a time when everybody was talking about hockey to this level. I do not remember a time when I tuned in and even like First Take and Dan Patrick's show. I guess he's been off, but like everybody is dialed in on hockey almost primarily. You know, it's the dead of the off season, if that's such a thing in football. So there's very thin football headlines to distract. The NBA, most of that conversation has slanted pretty negatively over the All-Star weekend. And baseball is just ramping up, but not yet significant enough. So hockey's having its moment right now. And Gary Bettman and company and the owners and everyone just has to be feeling so good about the positioning of a league. Only a couple weeks after that article came out like, hey, guys, hockey television ratings are in the toilet.
Yeah, we've been complaining about NBA ratings. So you should see hockey's basically what that article said.
Yeah. Bad. Really bad. But anyway, we've got a lot to discuss on the show today. I actually wanted to get to this yesterday. We ended up not having time, which is evidence of how bad I am at radio when you have 3 hours and you can't even carve out enough time to talk about something that I deem to be relatively important. And, of course, I did carve out a little bit of a poll question with this. It's actually not a poll question. It's more of just like a question. Do you, James, think that we need some type of salary cap or spending limit in order for interest in college football to be maintained? In order for people to still love college football and college sports in general, at least the revenue-producing ones, do we need to see some kind of salary cap, financial regulation, whatever phrase you want to use to frame it? Do we need that in order to save college sports as we know it because of how out of control it has been getting over these last couple of seasons?
So I have a grievance with how you framed your answers to the poll question, your options there, because I say no, but your no accompanied with free market, baby. That I am not on board with the whole. It has to be no, and it should just be unregulated. I would say it's a nuance. It's a nuanced no for me. It's a no. I don't think interest will wane if there's not regulation. But I also think that there should be some regulation.
Okay.
With that sort of thing.
Okay,
I have a grievance with the way with the parentheses, with what you put in the parentheses on your poll options.
Do you think it is a coincidence that baseball, America's pastime for 100 years, is no longer that in a free and easy, free market economy? Whoever has the most can spend the most and stockpile the most. Do you think that it is unrelated that baseball has become less popular over the last 2 decades especially, and their financial system does not mirror a hard cap league that drives true competitiveness like we see in the NFL? Do you think those things are unrelated?
I think that they are. Let me give you a stat here.
Okay.
So we talk about the NFL as if they invented parity and they are the standard of parity. I'm glad you brought up baseball, because baseball, how many of the 32 NFL franchises have won a Super Bowl?
I think it's like 26.
It's 20.
20. Okay.
So 12 have not.
All right.
How many baseball franchises of the 30 have won a World Series?
Tell me.
26.
Okay. So
20. How many have been to a Super Bowl? It's more like 26. How many have been to a World Series? 29 out of the 30. The Seattle Mariners are the only franchise to never reach a World Series. So I think it is unrelated, because baseball actually has more parity, especially in the last 25 years. There's been way more parity. And with NFL, in the last 20 years, it's been the Patriots or the Chiefs, basically. There's been a handful of other teams that have won multiple championships, but no one more than 2 other than those franchises. So baseball, weirdly, we talk about the reason why we like the NFL is because it has more parity, but baseball, weirdly, is the one that has more parity, and it's the third or fourth most watched sport in America, right? It's probably ahead of hockey, but only by a little bit. So I think it is unrelated. I think it's more about our attention spans. I think it's the fact that there's only 18 to 20 games in the NFL, and they're only on certain days of the week. I think that that's much easier to consume than baseball and basketball, which are basically every day.
Okay,
for a longer time.
These are all great points. So you don't think that baseball, part of the issue with baseball is the perception that the commissioner himself had to go up 2 days ago to a podium and address that, and your point is incredibly well made when you talk about who's actually won championships.
Yeah.
But when the commissioner has to say, hey, guys, the Dodgers have $1 billion in deferred compensation and are stockpiling all of the elite talent available right now in Major League Baseball, but it's within the rules of the system, so you have to accept it. Is that an issue for baseball right now?
I absolutely do believe that that's an issue. And I believe that even though I just made a case that it's unrelated to the popularity of the sport, I do believe that the more leagues that are like the NFL, as far as financially, as far as with the salary cap, the better the league probably is, the more appealing that league probably is. Because even though I think it's more about how it's easier to consume and it's easier to follow because it's shorter and it's more compact, I do feel like NFL has done a much better job of marketing the fact that every year every team has a shot.
Okay.
Baseball, that's really, as I mentioned, that's actually borne out that every team has more of a shot, but they don't market it well enough. And compounding that with the fact that big markets like New York and LA can just spend whatever they want and defer as much as they want, basically.
Literally, the Dodgers have deferred.
Is a perception problem.
$1 billion of compensation, which means that they get to stretch out these mega contracts until basically the year 2050, and they can hand out a lot more money because of that.
It's a huge perception problem. It is.
Okay, so the perception thing is probably more of an issue as we try to apply this to college sports, because the perception right now, literally the SEC and the Big Ten yesterday sat down and had meetings where they were deciding the future of the college football playoff autonomously. Just the two of them were saying, what do we need to do here? And they're not saying that to like, let's take whatever we decide and graciously present it as a solution to the rest of the commissioners in the league. It's those two leagues, the commissioners of those two leagues, are sitting down and saying, all right, what are we going to demand from everybody else? Because we are the ones who run this. So that is as much a perception and marketing, more of a perception and marketing problem than what you, I think, are very accurate with Major League Baseball versus the NFL. Every college fan in America right now, certainly in football, and because of the way this season is working out in basketball, has to look at things and say, you know what, I think that the SEC and the Big Ten are in control of all of our revenue-producing sports. And I think that money is the reason they are in control, which means you start to strip away the layers. Money is in control of college sports right now. And that's always been the case to some degree. But we liked it better when it was done in the dark.
We absolutely did.
We preferred the conversation when it was like a little bit of a conspiracy theory that the University of Miami and USC and all this stuff were in Auburn. And they're paying all these guys, and Cam Newton got $400,000, and Reggie Bush's parents got a condo, and you got the confirmation of those things after the fact, and you were just like, whatever. It was, it was great to watch those games. It was a great season.
Yeah, it was
super fun.
We liked the however little plausibility there was. We liked the fact that there was some plausible deniability.
Sure. Yeah.
Of these conspiracy theories that mostly turned out to be real when it comes to paying athletes.
And now that it's above board, we like it less, which is probably says more about us as sports consumers and as an audience than it does about the sports themselves. But it's really fascinating. When I put a question out, 877-353-0700, always love hearing from you on our Dish Pros text line, at Real OC Sports. Do you need a salary cap or a spending limit, some kind of financial regulation to maintain your interest in college sports long term? 93% of the respondents right now say, yeah, you've got to put a salary cap down. I don't think you ever can, because we'll see too many lawsuits. And there wasn't one before when it was only the SEC and like a few select teams here and there in each league that either had the wherewithal, the willingness, or the funds to distribute things illegally, to bolster their programs. Like the University of Miami has been paying players for decades. Alabama, as much as Nick Saban likes to sit down and act offended when Shane Gillis suggests that they were paying players, Alabama's been paying players.
And they most certainly did it in Nick Saban's era.
100%.
They most certainly did.
And he relied on plausible deniability by keeping enough layers between himself and the bag man so that he can sit down on an analyst desk now and take this self-righteous approach. We know it happened at USC. That's not even a thing anymore. Laramie Tunsil, in the NFL draft, there was this weird time in like the early to mid, it was like 2008 to 2015-ish, where Ole Miss was getting the best recruits at each position. They would get like the number one guy at each position. They'd get like Robert Kimdiche, who's the best D lineman in the country. They get Laramie Tunsil. They get Laquan Treadwell. They'd get all these guys that everyone's just like, why are they going to Ole Miss? And then Tunsil's like stepdad put out a video of him with a gas mask bong, and he just started telling everybody everything. People were just like, well, did you ever get improper benefits at Ole Miss? And he just straight up was like, yeah. Yep, coaches would pay my mom's bills.
He's like, yeah, what are you going to do about it?
And what are they going to do about it?
Seriously.
And guess what they did about it? Exactly zero. Nothing. Nobody cared, right? Because it was this hindsight thing. We didn't mind when we learned about it after the fact. Now that we're knowing what these guys demand coming in, and it's above board, and there's actually a business and a company endorsing this, and the big-time schools are like throwing off the drapes and saying, ha, 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 let there be light on all of this stuff we've been doing forever. Now everyone can be involved in it. Now we hate it. And it's a really interesting phenomenon because I got to tell you, the University of Utah was not a major player in the illegal benefits department. They just weren't. There were not enough boosters that were willing to do that. There were not enough coaches that were willing to do that. There were not enough supporters of the program that were willing to be like, I don't care what it takes. I don't care what rules we have to break. Just get this guy here. It happened. There were some. There certainly were some at BYU. We learned about it in the comical fashion, right? Like Disney passes and Volkswagen Jettas and whatever else. Like, yes, it happened everywhere, but Utah was not a big player in this space. BYU was not a big player in this space. Utah State was hardly a player in this space. And for some reason, we had less of a problem with it when the odds were stacked completely, like lopsided to the most aggressive degree in favor of everybody else. Now that your team gets to play in this sandbox, you don't like it. And to me, James, it's counterintuitive. It's very strange that we hate it so much. And by the way, when I say we, I really do mean we. I'm talking about me as well, because I loved it when Utah was able to beat USC more years than not while USC was paying players. And Utah was maybe doing a little bit of scribbling outside the lines, like barely, like someone got a slightly better apartment than they were supposed to or something like that. I love that Utah was still beating USC when USC's guys were unabashedly driving nicer cars than their coaches. Like this dude from a depressed economic background driving around in an Escalade, and everyone's just like, oh, yeah, he must be using a scholarship check to make that payment.
Yeah.
It's not even possible. And yet, we just, when it was done in the dark, we just kind of were like, all right, that's fine. And now that it's all out in the open, there's this aggressive call for regulation and this aggressive call for a cap. And we're all in the same boat here because I'm with you. I'm like, we got to do something, man. We got to do something so that Utah can remain competitive in this space. And we got to do something so that BYU and Oklahoma State, for that matter, can hang, and that the Ohio States and Alabamas of the world don't just leave everybody in the dust. Because they met yesterday in New Orleans, had this Knights of the Round Table meeting, and we're just like, hey, what are we going to do to college football? And the rest of us just have to go with it.
What I got from all of that, OC, is that Utah had integrity and no one else did. That's what I got from everything you just said, that Utah's the only school that's ever had integrity in college football.
Listen, not what I'm trying to say, but we do have to say, and you do have to, like, this is something Utah conducted itself with far more integrity than a lot of the teams that they were tasked with beating in an era where NIL was not legal.
Yeah, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek.
Of course.
The point you were really making is that Utah never really had the resources, and probably coaches like Witt and Ronnie Mack and others that we have rightfully put on a pedestal. I like to believe that they probably had too much integrity to be, in addition to not having enough of the resources to really be breaking those rules. But the main point is they even if they wanted to, they probably never had the resources to be paying top high school players to come in the nation to come play here in Salt Lake City, while other places like Alabama and my Ohio State Buckeyes, Texas Longhorns, they did.
It's not a coincidence that not only are those schools continuing to pull in more money from their collectives and their boosters than average, but they also are more efficient and more practiced at making sure they utilize this as a recruiting tool and they get the funds to the players that this is not a new system for them. They've been doing it for decades, and now they're doing it while being audited and while people are actually, the university itself knows what's going on. That's the only difference. So I saw the baseball conversation. The Dodgers are buying their way to another championship is the effort, right? That's what they're trying to do, and they're doing it unabashedly. And the commissioner had to stand up at a podium and say, guys, you just got to deal with this because it is legal. This system is legal. And right now
it sucks, but it's legal, so we got to deal with it.
And guess what? That's the case in the NCAA.
Yeah.
You got to I mean, I don't know who's going to do it, but someone's going to have to stand up before the 2025 season starts and go, I know this sucks, but the SEC and the Big Ten have the most money, and that means they have the most power, and that means they get the most automatic bids for this expanding college football playoff. And that means we can't upset them, by giving Arizona State a first-round bye in the playoff and Boise State a first-round bye in the playoff. These guys are the ones who are going to create the rule set for all of us to follow, and I know that sucks, but we have to deal with it because the almighty greenback is what matters to us most in college sports now. And we have to come to grips with that. There's no putting it away. There's no unringing that bell, unfortunately. It blows my mind that they didn't even have to hide the fact that they were meeting. Just the two conferences were meeting in New Orleans. Top secret. We'll let you know what we decide. Didn't even have to hide it, James.
And maybe the ACC and Big Ten should clap back and be like, well, we're meeting in Charlotte.
Yeah. Guess what, guys? We met also, and we have decided that
we met in Ames, Iowa.
Every one of our member institutions wants to be part of your conferences. That's what we decided.
Oh, wait. We weren't supposed to say that part out loud. We were just trying to say that we met, too.
All right. We got to take a break. Gordy Chase is going to join us in a second. Reminder to all of you that Les Schwab Tires brings you the show today and every day. Tires, wheels, and accessories for whatever you drive. Stop by the local Les Schwab today. The pros there are going to get the job done right the very first time. We're going to check in with Gordy Chiesa. I think he and I are probably equally sad about the news that Victor Wembanyama is out for the rest of the season, but I'll let Gordy use his own words there. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.
Lakers are down by 3. Here's LeBron going to get a good look at it. Straight away. Gobert still with an opportunity to tie the game. And Charlotte holds on and wins on the road.
A little bit of good news there for your Utah Jazz tanking update. LeBron James missed 3 at the end of a Lakers loss to the Hornets, courtesy of LA Lakers and Spectrum Sportsnet. Bill McDonald on the call. How about this stat? Thanks, James, for throwing this in. LeBron James, 1 of 29 in his Laker career, going all the way back to October 2019 on a game-tying or go-ahead shots with 5 seconds or less left in a game. So the clutch shots when he is a Laker in a Laker uniform, he's 1 of 29. That is brutal.
It blew my mind because he was clutch.
Well, not according to Skip. Not according to Skip Bayless.
According to Skip Bayless, he's LeBrick James. But he was very clutch, especially going from his time with the Heat all the way through the end of his second stint with the Cavs last decade. So that blew my mind that he's 1 for 29 in those 2 that he missed. Those 2 count as that in his Lakers career. This is his sixth season with the Lakers OC.
Gordy Chiesa, as you heard the sounder coming in, great job putting that thing together. Kind enough to join us here on a Thursday. Gordy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing fine. Right now, I'm snowed in my house. It's been crazy.
Yeah. Gordy, are you team snowblower or team shovel?
Well, I have the greatest neighbor next door, and he's has these unbelievable apparatus of snowblowers. And so the goodness of his heart, he always does my driveway and other places where we are, and I am so grateful. So the answer is snowblower, but it's not me. I'm grateful.
So that's one great thing about the snowblower neighbor is if you're going to go through all the trouble of pulling that monster out and getting that thing fired up, a lot of times they're doing 3 or 4 driveways. They're doing all the sidewalks in the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good Samaritan, and you're exactly right. But I live in Little Cottonwood here in the mountains, and it's crazy right now.
All right, Gordy.
Crazy. Oh, see, making it crazy right now. Let's start quickly about Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, Gordy, I'm sick about this.
His status.
What do you know?
Well, what I know is that it's a serious injury, and thank God that they were able to right away diagnose it. For the listeners right now that didn't know about it, Victor Wembanyama has a blood clot in his right shoulder, and it's serious. And he came back from the All-Star weekend, and they said he had an illness. And they gave him a physical with thank God, and it's a blood clot. It's very similar a few years ago to Brandon Ingram had the exact same thing. So now he's out for the season, and rightfully so. And he's going to, I'm sure, get medicine and try to get this condition get under control and be ready to go next year. So for the Spurs, it's devastating, the loss of Wembanyama, but for him personally, we're grateful, all of us in the NBA, that, as always, early diagnosis is absolutely critical.
So it's being characterized as deep vein thrombosis, which, of course, the blood clots are a complication, and they're the most dangerous of the complications with this. And as I see the headline of, Victor Wembanyama has deep vein thrombosis, what is that? How do you get that? Well, I looked it up, Gordy. This is what's so insane about the whole thing for me. Deep vein thrombosis is a condition where blood clots forms in a deep vein, usually in the legs, but it is caused by prolonged inactivity, not something we have to worry about with Victor Wembanyama, surgery or hospitalization. I'm not aware of him having surgery or being hospitalized for an extended period of time in the recent past. Smoking is a massive risk factor here. All the complications, all the causes of this don't fit the bill for a young, athletic professional who is constantly keeping himself in good shape and constantly engaging in physical activities. This is as bad a luck as you can get.
Very much, yes. So sometimes your diagnosis, as far as what you're talking about, it's just bad luck that you shouldn't have it, but you have it. and that's what you have to be able to deal with it. And we all know a lot of things. People, God forbid, never smoked a day in their life, get throat cancer. Really, never smoked a day in your life, and that's what happens. So again, age 21, he has this condition. It's actually treatable, and that they did the right thing to Spurs, shutting him down. So now, from a big picture standpoint, minus his personal health from the NBA right now, is that the Spurs will be very hard for them to make the playoffs. So it'll probably be their sixth year without making the playoffs. And so his Wembanyama's math numbers right now, just for his value to his team: 24.3 points per game, 11 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 3.8 blocks, would lead the NBA. The Spurs right now are 23 and 29, and so they can't replace him as far as his value, to say the least. They're going to try to piecemeal it, and so now it sounds crazy, Sean, is that they'll be in the lottery. And we know about the Spurs in the lottery history. They've had the most unbelievable, incredible good fortune the last 40 years in the lottery.
I mean, when you see something like this, the Jazz perspective, you got to be like, oh my gosh, a team like San Antonio that you're going to have to deal with in the short term and the long term with somebody like Victor Wembanyama anchoring that roster, again, hoping for his long-term health to be 100% okay here. And now you're in a situation where they're doing similar things to what you're doing, but well ahead of you in the rebuild roster-wise and competitively. Now they also get a lottery pick. That stinks if you're sitting in a Jazz uniform right now.
Yeah, very much. And last year, the lottery pick was Stephon Castle, who's a very good young talent who should be Rookie of the Year. He was the fourth pick of the draft, and he's performed very well for them. He's only 20 years old. And so visualize him and Wembanyama, they go forward, and now wherever they pick, again, we're assuming in the lottery, if they get a high draft lottery or the lottery gods are benefit to them, wherever they're picking, they're going to get a major, again, young talent that they're going to try to develop right now. So this is the NBA where you think you know what's going to happen, and like all professional sports, you don't know. Last week, I talked about the Dallas Mavericks, where they thought last summer in their war room that we're going to be good, the Mavericks. We lost in the NBA Finals. We have a whole team coming back, another year experience, and then literally 8 months later, they're disarray. And that's what happens, that you plan for the future. However, there's so many different roadblocks as far as getting it. Another roadblock was Bobby Portis being suspended for 25 games for a violation of the anti-drug policy by the NBA. Again, the Bucks were world champions back in 2021, and now they're reeling again with that as far as him missing. He's going to miss 25 games. The Bucks only have 29 games left. So the Bucks are in fifth place right now, and they miss Bobby Portis, who last year was voted the sixth man of the year. So the question will be, can the Bucks overcome that to try to bite, fight, and claw to stay in the top six in the East? And when you get Bobby Portis back off the suspension. Just the last point about that. I'm asked this question many times over the years about players and coaches under contract in the NBA. A player can be tested for drugs or steroids up to 4 times during the season and twice in the off season, and you never know when they're going to test you. So even the coaches. So a lot of times, Sean, they call you on the phone, can you come down? And suddenly as a coach or a player, that you get tested. And they can do that at any time they want to do. And based on the CBA agreement, that teams are not informed when a player fails the first 2 drug tests. It's a privacy issue. So by him being suspended for 25 games, I'm just assuming, I'm reading the rules here, is that they already tested him twice, and now it's the 3rd time. His agent, Mark Bartelstein, is trying to gain some traction, saying that he didn't know. And the way I'll say it to you is that the NBA and every individual team does seminars to the players many times during this season, but especially in the preseason, where they say to you in layman's term, do not take any drugs at all or medication without the approval of our own team doctors and administered by our trainers. Very similar to the Olympics, right? But this is even more so with your own team doctors. And so what happened, he took some sort of medication that wasn't on the legal list, and this is what happened.
Gordy Chiesa, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We're going to keep him in this segment, and we'll probably double break at the end. I want to keep talking to Gordy because normally he's in studio with us. He got snowed in today because of the blizzard conditions up there at the mouth of the canyon. So we're going to maximize our time with Gordy before we get to Jason Beck at the beginning of our second hour. We read that we played the highlight of LeBron James trying to tie up the game with a three-pointer, and I read that stat that I was unaware of until today. It blows me away. We know what LeBron has done in his career. We know that LeBron is the alpha of all alphas in that Lakers organization and every other one he's been a part of. But at what point, if a guy is 1 for 29 in those game-deciding shots over the last, over his Laker career, at what point, especially now that you have Luka, do you start saying, all right, game on the line, you're not the guy taking the last shot anymore, LeBron?
Yeah, very much. That's going to happen. Eventually, it's going to be almost LeBron being as a decoy. He might start the action the last 5 or 6, 7 seconds, but then move the ball to Luka where he can create a shot also. So the Lakers are still learning as far as who's the best shot maker for them at the end of the game. Also, an underrated shot maker is Austin Reeves. So he could be the benefactor of this whole thing where LeBron gets the ball up to Luka, they double-team Luka Doncic, and then suddenly Austin Reeves is the guy wide open for the top of the circle. 1 for 29. Interesting. Kobe Bryant in yesteryear was absolutely a great clutch performer. So was Dwayne Wade. And also with the Denver Nuggets, you have the feeling that no matter what happens is that the Denver Nuggets can get a good shot, whether it's Jamal Murray or whether it's a favorite son, Nikolai Jokic, can get their own shot. So those guys are really tremendous shot makers on a low shot clock to win the game. In the Eastern Conference, it's definitely Dame Lillard of the Milwaukee Bucks is an absolutely incredible shot maker, end of a possession, and also for the Celtics, it's really both two guys, Jaylen Brown and also Jason Tatum.
Gordy, we've got a Four Nations finale tonight in hockey. International competition it's awesome. It's fun. Usually we reserve it for World Cups, for Olympics. There is, conversation in the NBA. A couple of the game stars have said, make the All-Star game like the NHL has done. Make it a national pride type of thing. And look, you've been around the game for such a long time and around Team USA and the international players that have come in. Tell me about how the rival of U.S. basketball has kind of evolved over the years because, in hockey, you go back far enough and you go to like the Miracle on Ice. It was very much like Team USA wanted to beat the Soviet Union in everything for obvious reasons. Now it's Canada and USA in hockey. It's been that way. And tonight it's going to be full-fledged, full force. Who is, in your mind, Team USA's biggest basketball rival at this moment?
France, with Canada being a close second. Yeah, the Frenchmen, those guys, because Victor Wembanyama and the whole crew, is that they're going to be a reckon as far as in the next, really, truly, every Olympics or every World Championships. And the Canadians, which is so close to the U.S. border, there's a hotbed for Canadian basketball in Toronto. That's where they have a great AAU program for the Canadian kids, and most of those guys go to colleges in the States for 1 or 2 years. So it's going to be the French and the Canadians will go against the American players, and they definitely have catched up. Back in 1992, the original Dream Team, that was David Stern's vision to grow the game globally, and he did. So now let's fast forward 33 years later. This is the byproduct of it. There's so many tremendous players from foreign countries that are highly sought after. So, for example, right now, you think about it. Last year, Sean, the first team All-Pro team was one Canadian, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one Slovenian, Luka Doncic, one Greece, Giannis, and one Serbian, Nikolai Jokic. So the only American player to make first team All-Pro last year was Jason Tatum. So 4 to 5 All-Pro players last season, first team, were from foreign countries. That says it all.
It says a lot. I mean, Gordy, in the sport that I dedicate so much time to, mixed martial arts, the MMA world, there are very few championship caliber Americans right now, as that has become such an international sport as well. So it's really interesting when you start kind of outsourcing the popularity of basketball. MMA always had a certain contingent of Brazilians and Japanese fighters and things like that. But now, I mean, there's like 5 guys across multiple organizations that you can say are the best of the best in different weight classes. And the world has taken over MMA. The world is taking over the NBA. The NFL is pushing for more international stuff. Are we going to get to a point where a lot of the American sports, the world talent, is actually surpassing the domestic talent?
Yes, the answer is absolutely. It's a global game. Yes, it will be. Oh, by the way, the whole sports world is 2 blocks long. That's how I'll say it to you. 2 blocks long. And that's how close it is as far as there's so much cross section of all sports, and that the training is so much better, and the alertness and the awareness of it based on social platforms, that the players know each other, and there's many more global tournaments where you're 15, 16 years old, and you're playing for your junior national team against other players, and that gives you a visualization of the competition, and also gives you confidence that I can play against this person, whatever sport it is, and that I'm as good as they are. And that's a great incentive to keep growing individual, your own skills, but also from a team standpoint, getting your country as far as being up there in the echelons of whatever competition you're in right now. There's nothing like it. And that's the beauty of it. And the NBA, it's pretty simple in the sense that it's a hoop, a ball, and you to get better.
Gordy, we won't have you on again before the Jazz get back in action. They're tomorrow night at home against a very good OKC team, if I'm not mistaken. What are you looking for in this contest?
Oh, it's Thunder. They're the poster of everybody. That's who the Jazz want to be as far as their whole situation. What I'm looking for is that the Jazz, please do not turn it over as far as just so easily, because with the Thunder are first in the NBA in steals. So they steal the ball first in the NBA, and yet they commit the least turnovers. And that's why they're tremendous on both sides of the ball. And so in Jazz basketball, they've got to be able to just really understand what they're trying to do. Next part about it is that they're first in the NBA in free throw percentage. So when they get fouled, they go to the foul line and make 82% of their free throws, and that's what makes it so good. And the last point about that, there's so many stats, I don't want to bore you about it, is that they allowed the least points in the NBA, 104.9, and they're first in the NBA guarding the three-point line. So the illustration is that they're tremendous on both sides of the ball. How did it start? It started in 2022 with such an impactful draft selection. They drafted at number 11, ironically, Ousmane Dieng, who's a good off-the-bench player, but number 12 was the jackpot, Jalen Williams, who became an all-star from Santa Clara. Before that, pick number 2 was Chet Holmgren, a potential all-star who got hurt. Now he's ready to go. And the last pick was a guy named Jalen Williams out of Arkansas, the 34th pick of the draft. Then the following year, they get Cason Wallace, number 10, and then last year, they get Dylan Jones out of Weber State. So they drafted incredible, very wisely, and that's why they're a good team. And as we speak right now, my list today is going over the Thunder, their franchise / the Seattle Supersonics.
Let's hear the list.
Okay, my list today is just quickly that the Sonics started as an expansion team back in 1967-68. The entry fee at that time for an expansion team was $1.75 million. Now, if Seattle and Las Vegas join the NBA, it's just for the privilege to own an NBA team and be part of the NBA. It's going to cost the new ownership group roughly between $900 and $950 million just to get into the league. So from 1.75 to $950 million. Quickly, the Thunder moved from Seattle back in 2008-09. So they've been now in Oklahoma City now for 17 seasons. Remember, Sean, I used to coach the Thunder. I left the Jazz. I went to the Nets, and from the Nets to the Thunder. So in the Seattle Supersonics. So I was there before they moved to the Thunder. Here we go. The top 10 players of OKC Thunder, Seattle Sonics history. Number 10, Nick Collison. They call him Mr. Thunder. He played all 14 years for the Thunder. He's the only person in the Thunder history with number 4 jersey retired up in the rafters. Number 9, Dale Ellis. Played in Seattle for 7 years, 41.8 from threes, knockdown shooter. Number 8, I also coached Nick Collison. Number 8, I also coached Rashard Lewis, 9 years in Seattle, NBA All-Star. Number 7, I coached Ray also the Sonics, 5 years with the Sonics, Hall of Fame back in 2018 inductee. He's the second greatest shooter of all time next to, we all know him, we love him, Stephen Curry. Number 6, nickname was the Rain Man, Sean Kemp, played for the Sonics for 8 years, 6-time NBA All-Star. Number 5, he plays now for the Thunder. He should be the MVP of the league this year. This is his 6th year already in OKC, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Number 5, Jack Sigma, 9 years with the Seattle Sonics, Hall of Fame inductee back in 2019, NBA champs, 1979. Number 3, Russell Westbrook, played for the Thunder for 11 years. Let's not forget, back in 2017, he was the league MVP. He's a future Hall of Famer. Number 2, his nickname was the Glove. Played for 13 years with the Seattle Supersonics. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame back in 2013, Gary Payton. And the number 1 player in Seattle Sonics / OKC Thunder history is Kevin Durant. He played 9 years for the organization, 1 in Seattle and 8 in Thunder, future Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greats. He recently scored his 30,000th career point. Thus, that's my list today of the greatest ever OKC Thunder / Seattle Supersonics players.
Utah Jazz will host the Thunder tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time tip-off. Gordy, it's always a pleasure. Stay safe in the snow. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Sean. Stay well. Peace out.
That's our guy, NBA insider Gordy Chiesa. He's the man. All right. We're going to catch up with the new offensive coordinator at the University of Utah. Jason Beck joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Here's Dampier, forcing his way into the end zone. New Mexico takes the lead. It's been 20-plus years since the Lobos have upset a ranked team. Trying to do so here against 18th-ranked Washington State.
Here on the home of the Utes, you're not going to hear a lot of New Mexico highlights, but that obviously is relevant to the Utes because Devin Dampier has transferred to be your presumed starting quarterback when Utah kicks off its season this fall. That sound courtesy of Fox Sports. Devin Dampier followed his offensive coordinator Jason Beck, who took the job at Utah as well this offseason, and he is kind enough to join us right now on the Sean O'Connell Show. Coach Beck, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to be on with you.
Yeah, appreciate you giving us some time here on the home of the Utes. You're, I guess, a couple months into this thing now at the University of Utah. Do you feel settled in wearing red and go Utes and all that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Just kind of been hitting the ground running ever since it came together. And, yes, definitely feeling at home and enjoying it.
How much does the fact that, your quarterback who you had some success with at New Mexico and he followed you to Utah, knowing that he's going to be around and that you can continue building on the relationship together and hopefully the offensive success together, how much does that help with that settling in process?
Oh, it's a big advantage, a big plus. I mean, anytime you're installing a new offense, when you have somebody that's familiar with it and what's happening, it just makes it a lot easier. And it helps all the other quarterbacks because they get to see him do it and what it should look like, and it helps their learning curve as well.
So for the folks who have not yet cut on the New Mexico highlights or gone all the way back to what's available from Devin as a high school player, whatever, describe for my listeners who he is, what he is as a quarterback.
Devin is kind of able to do it all. I mean, he can throw it well, has good arm talent. He can run it. He's a good athlete, make you miss, pretty tough runner. But the thing that stands out to him is just his decision-making. He's able to kind of process, make decisions, deal with all that in real time at a really high level. He's as good as I've been around with everything he's able to handle and making those decisions in a split second.
Everyone I've talked to very excited about him and his dual threat ability, especially as you guys get geared up for spring ball starting in about a month here. What are the improvements you really want to see from Devin in his game?
Just looking, to continue to take steps forward. There's a lot of new players here and different players here that we got to develop that chemistry with. And so just getting everybody on the same page, developing the chemistry, and then just progressing forward in the offense, just with the reads, the decision-making, all that kind of stuff. But it's getting that chemistry going with all the other guys on the offense. That will be the main objective this spring.
There's always that question about, chemistry, especially in a transfer portal era where at Utah the entire running back room is brand new right now. A bunch of new faces in the wide receiver position room. Obviously, you've got some departing talent at the tight end spot, a couple of guys back, a couple of guys returning, whatever. So how do you build that chemistry even before you get into practice? I mean, what's it like in the weight room and film study and the voluntary workouts these guys are doing right now?
Yeah, they're competing with each other and all the workouts they have in the weight room and the agility, running type of stuff, but also just getting together to watch film, getting together to throw. That's a big part of what you're trying to accomplish. Because when you look at that skill group, there's just, like you mentioned, there's not a lot of guys returning that have had a lot of production. And so we want to help that come together as fast as we can.
One of the interesting things about that situation is that for Utah football, that's kind of been a bonus for years and years now, right? Kyle Whittingham's been in place heading into his 21st season. A lot of the assistant coaching staff even was pretty long-standing and is still on the defensive side at least. And there's this continuity aspect to Utah football that even in the transfer portal era is, I think, more consistent than what we've seen from other teams, even from some of the closest competition you guys are going to face in the Big 12. So how do you try to make that still a strength for this team when there is so much new, but the Utah culture, the Utah football way, how do you try to make that, put that in the blood of guys who are new to the program, yourself and your assistant coaches included, I suppose?
Yeah, I heard this saying when we got here that it's for all the new guys, it's our job to buy in to the Utah culture and the Utah way of doing things. Nobody's going to adjust to the way, to your way, individually. And so that is what it's all about. They got a great tradition here, a great culture. They've had a ton of success. So it's everybody that's new buying into that and what that means and embracing it. And I've been impressed with the guys. They've been working hard. They've had great attitudes, and they're fun to be around. It's a good group to work with.
New Utah offensive coordinator Jason Beck is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. I swear, Coach, I'm not just going to have a Devin Dampier interview. I do have more questions about your quarterback, but I want to know about your offense as well. Last thing on Devin for now, he was the best in the country last year at avoiding sacks, and not because the offensive line at New Mexico was particularly deep or talented or dominant. A lot of that was just his recognition, his decision-making, the things you're talking about. But can you put into words the ability he has to avoid sacks?
Yeah, he like you mentioned, he makes quick decisions to get the ball out and to be able to be smart that way. But when things do break down or there is a problem, he just has that quickness to extend the play, to make a guy miss, to buy time. And we had a good group up front, but no, the reason we were so good at avoiding sacks was because of Devin's ability to get rid of the ball with his reads and or make guys miss and extend plays and escape from the pocket. And so that's definitely a big part of his game and what he does.
So when I look at comparing what you had at New Mexico, solid, but I think that maybe one of the strengths of your offense this year is the group you have up front, the offensive line you have up front, two incredibly talented young tackles, some experience throughout the middle of that offensive line. I'm coach. I'm like, okay, if he gave up if he took 4 sacks at New Mexico, and this is a more talented offensive line, I'm shooting for 0 sacks taken by Devin Dampier this year. Is that realistic?
I do not think that's realistic. That'd be a hell of a season, even for like the military academies. But I have been impressed with the O-line. They are the leaders of the offensive side of the ball, and man, they bring a lot of experience and a lot of talent to the offense for sure.
Well, what is the tight end role going to be in your offense for those who didn't watch a lot of New Mexico or your previous stops?
It will be is what I'm big on, and as we go through spring, is identifying who are our top players, and we call it the circle of trust. And so guys earn their way into the middle of that circle of trust by being able to block, be able to get open and catch the ball and make plays, ball security, all those critical things that are important to winning. And so some years, the tight ends is a big part of that. And we'll play 12 personnel. We'll play with multiple tight ends. There's been years where the tight end will catch, 50 passes, but they have to earn that. And there's been other years where the tight end's gotten very little production just because of that ability to earn your way into that circle of trust. So that'll be a big part of this spring, identifying who our best players are on offense and then building that offense around those guys.
That's probably the right question to ask. How much do you let the personnel, the talent you have, dictate what you want to do offensively?
Yeah, absolutely, because it starts around the quarterback, what he can do. Then it goes to the O-line. And from what I know right now, Devin can do a lot. The O-line is talented. And then after that, then it goes to all your skill guys. And, some years it's more 10 personnel. Some years it's more 11. Some years it's 20. It is whatever your talent is, and then adapt it to that. Because ultimately, the guys on the field, you want to be the guys that are right in the middle of that circle of trust to be able to make plays and win games.
Jason Beck, Utah offensive coordinator, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Getting to know him, getting to know his offense a little bit. As we are getting to know you, Coach, how much of a mad scientist are you? How much are you like watching what's happening in the NFL or seeing something on YouTube or film, and you're like, hey, let me try that with my players, with my offense? How much do you like to tinker, especially now in the offseason when I guess would be the right time to start throwing some of those wrinkles in?
There's definitely a part of this that we want to be creative and we want to be dynamic and really hard to defend. And so you get kind of those ideas from anywhere through film study and watching it that way. But some of the best success we have is just when it goes back to that personnel, who are your best players and what do they do really well? And then trying to create the offense around those skill sets that kind of, will take a direction of its own every year based off who those guys are and what they do. And so some of the times the best things you come up with are things that you just innovate. You don't necessarily take it from somewhere. You just kind of innovate with the guys you have and ways to get them the ball.
Coach, I know you're a big family man, and that's important to the Utah football culture. How is the family adjusted? You find a good neighborhood? Is everyone are you guys all here already, or did you decide to finish out the school year in New Mexico? That's something we never, I guess, give its due when you're talking about job changes and the coaching carousel turning. It affects an entire family. It's like a whole network of people that have to adjust along with you. How's it been for the family?
The family's doing good. They are moved up here. The month of January, you're on the road recruiting a lot. And so we just kind of aimed right as that was finishing up. And we'd be in the office in February to have the family move up here at the beginning of February. So we were able to pull that off, and they're up here. A big part of taking the job here was obviously how great the program is here and the success they've had, but also being a great place for my family to live and to be in the community and the schools here. And so they're here, and we're settling in and really enjoying it.
You brought a couple of your assistant coaches from New Mexico with you, or I don't know how much that is you bringing those guys, or you just saying, hey, I want this job, and you should also take a look at these individuals who helped me be successful at New Mexico. When you're figuring out whether or not this is the right fit for you, how much is getting your guys with you or having your guys in the right place alongside you, how much of that is part of the discussion you're having with Kyle Whittingham and I guess maybe Mark Harlan and whoever else?
No, it was important. It's a big deal to install a new offense and to get everybody going. And I learned years ago from a good friend and mentor of mine, and he told me, always make sure you can take a couple people with you because it's really hard to do it by yourself. And so I've always kind of held on to that and know how important that is. And so so with the situation I was in and different opportunities, that was important to me. And so to be able to bring a couple people with me to really help get this whole thing going was an important part of it. And it makes it faster and it makes it easier to get everything up and running as fast as possible.
Couple schedule questions here for you, Coach. I guess it's a couple weeks ago now we got the schedule release. Start the season at UCLA, home against Cal Poly, and you know better than most people do, at Wyoming. What a trip that is and how horrible it is to go play an away game at Wyoming. And I know you guys will get ready for it, but when you saw that thing on the schedule, what was your reaction?
It brought up a memory of playing at Wyoming one year, and it was one of the roughest airplane rides I've ever been a part of. One of those where you're just holding on and the whole plane is shaking and bouncing all over the place. So that that memory popped up of flying into play at Wyoming years ago. But I am glad it's early in the year because the weather should be pretty good, being Game 3 versus if that thing was later in the year.
Yeah, certainly never want to be in Wyoming in like November or something like that.
Exactly.
Look, I have been a vocal advocate of the Holy War even when this was not a conference game. I love the BYU-Utah rivalry. We know how much cross-pollination there is on both of these coaching staffs, and a bunch of Utah guys are now BYU coaches, a bunch of former BYU players and coaches are now Utah coaches, including the head man himself. This game is October 18th instead of in rivalry week at the end of the year. I've been very, very public about my distaste for that. It's the best rivalry that remains in the Big 12 Conference and should be treated as such. But a trip to Provo, Saturday, October 18th, your thoughts?
No, that's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it's a rivalry game is a lot like when you're competing with your brother. You want nothing more than to beat your brother at what you're doing. So that's going to be a lot of fun and looking forward to it. And I don't know if people appreciate how physically and emotionally those games are. And so to have those games and then turn around and play the next one, that is a big challenge, and versus like you were saying at the end of the year, playing those things. But no, that'll be a lot of fun to play and looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be an intense 3 weeks, Coach. Arizona State, as you're well aware, then a road trip to BYU, and then at home against Colorado. So 3 tough ones in a row. That's a loaded part of your schedule. Yeah,
that would be, that's what it's all about, playing the top teams in your conference and being able to play well. And but yeah, that's definitely managing that week in and week out to be successful is going to be a key part of the year.
Just a couple more things here with Jason Beck, new offensive coordinator at the University of Utah on the Sean O'Connell Show. Any update on the eligibility extension, the appeal for Dorian Singer? Do we know anything new about whether or not he's going to be available?
No, nothing. No information in that regards. Just kind of waiting to hear.
So I had Coach Witt on, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, and we talked about the change. We talked about you and integrating you into the system at the University of Utah. And there was a narrative, or there has been a narrative that persists at Utah football that Kyle Whittingham is a defensive-minded, conservative, smash-mouth type of coach, sometimes puts a little bit of a governor chip on his offense and on his offensive coordinators. And I asked him a question about that, and he chuckled, and he said, why don't you just ask my offensive coordinators? Call them all and ask how many of them, ask them if I interfered with what they wanted to do offensively at all. So I'm going to do that. Have you gotten a sense that Kyle Whittingham wants to put his fingerprints on your offense in any way?
No. In fact, everything to me was because I was impressed how many games they watched of the offense and what we did, and so they hired me to run and do what I've been doing, and so I haven't got any sense of that. And in fact, as we're kind of planning and preparing for spring, I've been surprised how much is, hey, what do you guys need on offense? And a lot of that schedule and practice planning is getting built and developed around what we need on offense to get it up and running.
Last thing before I let you go, have you had time? Do you have the energy? Are you interested? Have you caught the hockey bug yet, like a lot of Utah folks have, now that we've got our own NHL team?
I have not. I just haven't even had a chance to kind of pay attention to it, to be honest. I did live in Canada for a year, and that was my first exposure to how excited people get about hockey was when we were up there. So I've obviously seen and heard about it a little bit, heard about a few of the dramatic wins they've had, but just haven't been able to really see any of the games to this point.
Well, for understandable reasons, as you're trying to install a new offense and get things settled at the University of Utah. It's only going to take one game, Coach. So just prepare yourself for that. Whenever you do get an opportunity to go down and watch this Utah Hockey Club, you're going to be snake bit like the rest of us. You're going to fall in love with this thing.
That's great. That's great.
Appreciate your time today. Welcome. We'll obviously be catching up with you multiple times, hopefully before the season starts here on the home of the Utes, and excited to meet you in person, Coach.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Look forward to meeting you, and great to be on with you.
That's the new offensive coordinator for the University of Utah, Jason Beck. He brought his offense and some of his best players and his best assistant coaches with him from New Mexico. No new news, no information updated on whether or not Dorian Singer is going to get extra eligibility. He is very, very, very close with Devin Dampier. They call each other brothers. Still no word, like official word, whether or not that's a biological relation or a half biological relation. It kind of doesn't matter. The way that when they're asked about it, they just say, no, that's my brother. But that would be really cool to see him back to play alongside Devin Dampier. So big thanks to Keeler and everyone up at the Utah football program for making that interview happen. And, of course, to Jason Beck for giving us some time today.
Yeah, great to have the new OC on here, and excited to see what he and Devin Dampier can do to Utah's offense this year. I love that he was completely honest with you about the Witt question that you asked him. That was incredible. He said no, he's not. He didn't shy away from it. I think in other coaches, maybe other coaching staffs, they might have been more. They might have wanted to say, well, he's the head coach. We always defer to him. And basically not comment on it, but he didn't shy away from it. I love that.
Well, the other thing is, and part of the reason I'm asking that question of Kyle Whittingham, and I asked that of Coach Beck, like, we do this thing, I'm especially guilty of it in sports talk radio. You fall on these old tropes, right? And you lean on these crutches that sometimes it's like what we were talking about yesterday, where you're just like, well, I'm certain that if I cut off a chicken's head, the body's going to run around for 10 seconds because I know that. That's just common knowledge, right? And that's where the Kyle Whittingham thing got to with Utah football fans. Oh, well, yeah, it's Kyle Whittingham, so he's going to put his thumb on the offense, and he's going to dampen that. He's going to control that. And it just became this like accepted thing, which maybe was true before and maybe wasn't. It didn't feel like it was really true at all with Andy Ludwig, to me at least. They were pretty aggressive in a lot of cases. There was a lot of like fourth down, let's go for it type decisions. Of course, there were other situational analytic moments where it was not that way. But I want to not be that guy in my own, on my own show. I don't want to be the guy who just like regurgitates the sort of generally accepted consensus if it's not actually true. So I need to get to the bottom of if it is true. And Jason Beck says right now that's not true. He's not doing that. And he made a great point about how, like, look, he hired me to run my offense. He watched what I had done before, and that's why he hired me. He wants me to come bring that here, not bring that here so he can control it. So I'm taking that at face value. I don't want to lean on that thing when we get to a game where Utah – runs the ball 65% of the time and smashes the Cal Poly Mustangs or whatever. We're just like, oh, yep, this is a Kyle Whittingham team that they're not going to throw the ball or whatever. That just isn't – it's lazy. I don't want to be lazy.
Yeah, and the good news is hopefully this fall we'll be doing Coordinator's Corners with Jason Beck on this show, and you can follow up with him. It says, hey, so you said preseason. He's not – He's not manipulating your offense in any way. How about in season now?
And yes, I do fully acknowledge how difficult of a position you put somebody in when you're just like, hey, so is he messing with your offense? Because like for him to be like, yeah, he's totally screwing it up.
Well, you're doing it on the radio. You're not just chatting with him out after practice. Like, yeah. But that's
let me
why
put you on the spot, Jason Beck.
Yeah.
Is Kyle Whittingham interfering with your success as a coach? It's not like he's just gonna be like, yeah, this dude's the worst to work for. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be unrealistic about this thing, but I want to give people a chance to answer the questions that all of us are just like, well, we already know the answer. We don't even need to ask the question.
And a little inside baseball here, as a sports talk radio host, you ask the question and then you accept the answer, especially when you know that you might be putting them in a difficult position. Like, okay, if you're going to give me a non-answer, fine, I understand. But I'm still going to ask the question.
Yeah.
It's up to you how you answer it. Dan Patrick talks about that all the time. I love when he pulls the curtain back and talks about his approach to interviews, because that is one that you certainly that everyone needs to take.
And he didn't give us a non-answer. He gave us an answer that I'm going to accept at face value for now. Also, I'm going to campaign. Like, I know the man is busy. We got to give him some time to watch some hockey.
Absolutely.
Like, that's a thing now in Salt Lake City.
Is Witt interfering with your potential hockey fandom?
Yeah. Like,
new OC, Jason Beck.
I'm going to text Witt right now and just be like, hey, give Jason Beck a night off to go to a hockey game. What are you doing?
Take him with you next time you go.
How messed up is it that Coach Witt's like, oh, yeah, I've seen a half a dozen of those games. Meanwhile, his offensive coordinator is just burning the midnight oil, and he's got, like, the blue light glasses on because he's been watching too much film.
Every time he brings it up, Witt's like, have you seen our offense the last 2 years?
Coach, do you think that maybe you could take me to one of those games? Just like, I don't know. I suppose I could if you don't want to win football games.
The ultimate gaslight. Oh, man.
We need a Kyle Whittingham reality show is what we need. We need the cameras following that man at all times, because it would either be the most ridiculously boring show in the history of television, because he just would be exactly what we thought he was, where it's like all he does is work out, watch film, or coach football, and then like play with his grandkids for an hour before he goes to bed early. Or we would get the curtain would truly be pulled back. We would see Kyle Whittingham in a whole new light. Coach, please, 2 things. Allow cameras into your life so we can see full access Kyle Whittingham show. And number 2, let Jason Beck go watch a hockey game.
Yeah.
All right?
That's all we're asking.
Don't
Just
even,
those 2 things.
Not even let him. Don't let him. Invite him. Say, hey, I'm going to the hockey game. I want you to come with me. We could talk about the offense in the breaks between periods. You got 20 minutes between the first period and the second period, another 20 between the second and the third. Take the guy with you.
He calls up Ryan Smith. Hey, one BYU guy to another. You got 2 tickets for me and former BYU guy, Jason Beck.
You know, Ryan Smith would just be
in
like,
your suite.
He'd be like, hey, here's the deal.
That you don't use.
If you wear Utah Hockey Club clothing, on the glass. If you wear Utah football clothing, you're sitting in the nosebleeds.
He's like, how about if I borrow Sean O'Connell's awesome University of Utah hockey sweater?
Yeah.
Instead.
Also, Jim Harding. I have seen Jim Harding at multiple Utah Hockey Club games. I think he's got season tickets. I've seen him at multiple games.
Is he sit in your area?
I always see him in the concourse. I don't know where he sits.
Okay.
But I've seen him at multiple games with his kids who are – I remember when they first got the job here, these like cute little boys running around. They're little men now. But Jim Harding, what are you doing? Take Jason Beck to a game, guys. Are they not integrating the new coaches into the culture? Are they still hazing?
When Jason says, hey, Jim invited me to some games with. If it's okay with you, I'm going to take a night off, grind it on film here.
Are they?
And then he says, well, the offensive line was fine.
Yeah, the offensive line is expected to be a strength. Are they hazing Jason Beck by not bringing him to Utah Hockey Club games?
It's too bad he's not on the phone anymore. We couldn't ask him this.
877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. Is Kyle Whittingham hazing Jason Beck as a new coach by not inviting him to Utah Hockey Club games? Hazing is no longer permitted in the NCAA. Come on, Coach. Obviously,
coaches think they're above all the rules.
That's all tongue-in-cheek. That's all a joke. For those of you who don't understand sarcasm,
you can still text us if you want.
Yeah,
but,
please do.
But we're all joking, okay?
Big 12 at noon brought to you by Mountain Land Supply. Visit mountainlandsupply.com. The Jason Beck interview, part of our Big 12 at noon coverage. He's happy we're going to Wyoming in September because you do not want to be going up there in the bad weather. And apparently you don't want to be flying up there any time of the year because of the bad turbulence.
Yeah, I just finished watching Lost. I that freaked me out just hearing about the kind of turbulence you could be getting in Wyoming after watching Lost.
All right, got to take a break. Way over time here on the Sean O'Connell Show. The numbers are out for how much revenue was produced by sports betting in 2024. We know it's not legal here in our state just yet, but when you hear some of these numbers, it's going to blow your mind. I also have a question about whether or not this threatens the integrity of competition in sports. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, I don't know what the betting line is on tonight's Four Nations Hockey Challenge finale is. I should look that up. But I know sports betting is going to be a big part of this thing as USA takes on Canada. Belle Fraser is going to join us in about 20 minutes to talk about it. She is in Boston for the finale. Team USA looking to go back-to-back against Canada after stealing one in Montreal and securing their spot in tonight's championship game. Then they played on Tuesday. They lost to Sweden, but it was kind of like you already have your spot in the championship, just relax a little bit kind of a situation. Multiple players resting in that game, presumably to get ready for tonight.
Load management. That's why they lost. They didn't lose because they're worse than Sweden. Like, come on.
Load management, which is not really a thing in the NHL, but is in the Four Nations, at least for this, because they really want to beat Canada. So anyway, people will be betting on this. People will find ways to bet on NBA games. Obviously, we've got March Madness coming up, and that is one of the biggest sportsbook days of the year, or biggest collection of sportsbook days. There's a lot of betting, all right? We know that this is legal, more legal now than it's ever been. It's becoming normalized. James, does that, in your mind, threaten the integrity of competition of games, that sports betting is far more prevalent now that is being legalized in multiple states than it ever was? Does it worry you at all?
It does, and I have no grievances with how you wrote the options on this poll.
Okay,
more
good.
concerned, less concerned. I feel like that puts people can feel comfortable answering both. But yeah, I put more concerned because how could you not be more concerned? And not really, like, that doesn't mean you're overly concerned. That doesn't mean you're really anxious about it all the time. Maybe some people are, but of course, when you introduce an element where lots of money is on the line for random people, and some that are not random people that may know people who can get to the refs, who can get to the league, who can get to the players or coaches, that's what sports betting does. Whether you believe that or not, sports betting, when you introduce legalized sports betting, or illegal, but in this case, legalized sports betting, you threaten the integrity of the game at least a little bit. Now, of course, I'm not overly concerned about it because I trust that the fact that these leagues are becoming embedded with these gambling companies means that they have put some guardrails, some things in place that will prevent most, if not all of that. But you have to, I feel like you have to be a little bit more concerned because it's just a natural consequence of introducing betting in sports. We've seen it from the beginning of sports and people putting down money on those sports.
This is where a social media post or even a series of them is completely inadequate because you have to have actual discourse about this phenomenon. ESPN reported that $150 billion worth of bets were placed in 2024. This is the legal sports betting industry, by the way, James. $150 billion worth of bets were placed, generating at the end of the day $13.7 billion of revenue in the American sports betting industry. So the sports books of the $150 billion total played, the sports books took home $13.7 billion, right? There's a massive, massive pie that everybody wants a slice of. Even a tiny slice of $100 billion pie is a big slice, right? So is this something to be concerned about? The way that James put it, I think pretty much sums up the increase in popularity means the increase in regulation, the increase in acceptance, and the closer you get to the corporate structures of these leagues and of their sponsors and things like that, the more watchdoggery there's going to be around sports betting. It does not mean that there's not foul play. It does not mean that there's hijinks or tomfoolery slipping by. The end of the day is there is going to always be some element of this, especially in the illegal sports betting situation. The legal sports gambling space has a lot of guardrails in place, and it's why you've seen some of these boneheaded things these boneheaded mistakes made by, coaches or officials or whatever. People are just like, oh yeah, this guy tried to put a $10,000 bet at a sports book on one single LSU baseball game. Normally, people bet like $100 on an LSU baseball game, and the guy throwing $10,000 down might know something he's not supposed to know, right? I was listening to a conversation about this morning, and I was like, you know what? I'm not really worried. I think that the industry, for the most part, is handling that threat pretty well. To the point where, if you ask me, when it becomes legal in the state of Utah, will I dabble? Yes, I will. Am I going to create a problematic situation for myself or my family, debt-wise or money-wise? No. But will I throw a little, $5 bet down on a game to make it a little bit more interesting? Sure. You can already do that in Utah with some of the fantasy leagues, the underdog fantasy, the sports picks, the prize picks, whatever. You can do all those things. And it does make it a little bit more interesting. To me, it doesn't necessarily increase my enjoyment one way or another. Losing a lot of money would significantly decrease my enjoyment on a game, so I would never bet a lot of money. So who is vulnerable in these cases? Who is the personality, who are the individuals that could harm the integrity of the game? We have a lot of conversations about officiating and officials and calls that don't make any sense. Officials are the weak link in this chain. When you're talking about pro athletes, do you know how much money you would have to give Lauri Markkanen for Lauri Markkanen to be willing to throw a game for you? He already makes so much money. He's already guaranteed his family generational wealth. To get a guy in that position of influence to throw a game or to shave points is a lot more difficult than it used to be. These guys, especially in the NBA, just being in the NBA sets you up financially for a long time. Now, of course, there's bad actors, and of course, there's people who are really poor money managers and could find themselves on the wrong side of debt or whatever. But it's actually very, very difficult to influence players because players make a lot of money. That is also true now in college sports in a way that it wasn't before. If we go back to the 90s and you want to tell some receiver to drop a touchdown pass so that he can get 20 grand, I mean, I'm willing to listen to how you could convince someone to do that. Nowadays, a starting wide receiver in a meaningful game, a starting quarterback in a meaningful game, that guy's making more money than you can probably influence by just playing the game the right way. There is greed. There are corrupt people who want as much, even if it's an extra $5,000 when they don't need the extra $5,000. But you're pretty well insulated, I think, when it comes to athletes manipulating the results based on payouts or hopefully even debt or, and heaven forbid, extortion. I think you're pretty well insulated from athletes manipulating things. But officials are the weak link in the chain. That's the only place I really have a serious concern with sports betting becoming more popularized and $150 billion of money in play, everybody wanting to scramble and grab some of that. If you're an official who makes – professional officials make anywhere from like $150,000 a year for being a referee to $500,000, I think.
When I think majority – even of the pro officials are still just seasonal workers.
In the NFL, they are.
Yeah, I don't think that full time. I think that there's plenty of professional leagues where the officials, there may be one or two that they're actually full time salaried employees, but they're seasonal workers. So that's the other reason why they would be the most vulnerable. Yeah,
and we've seen precedent for that, obviously, where guys have gotten, they've run afoul of bookies or whatever else. I'm looking at NBA referees make between $180,000 and $550,000 per year on average. All right.
Pretty good seasonal job.
That's a pretty great here's the thing. Like, if someone is making $500,000 a year, for you to get them to make a bad call to manipulate the results of a game one way or another, you got to give them a lot of money because there's a ton of risk involved in that. When you start going further down the ladder and you get to some of these college football games that has a big handle associated with it, a still a large chunk of money associated with the outcome of this game. How much do Big 12 football officials make to referee those games?
I doubt 180,000. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it's as much as NBA refs make.
College football referees in FBS, including the Big 12, make between $2,000 and $3,000 per game, which translates to extra seasonal salary of $24,000 to $36,000.
Yeah,
it is a relatively thankless job.
That's the seasonal work the rest of us can relate to, right? That might even be on the high end of some of the seasonal work that the regular people make.
I know guys who broadcast these games that make way more than that.
Good point.
Per game.
Good point. The broadcasters for college for even at the college level paid very well.
And look, I'm not talking about Kirk Herbstreit. I'm talking about guys that are broadcasting like the voice of the whomever on like a Big 12 level or a Pac-12 level when that was a thing, or Big 10 level. They're making more than these referees are, right? But the referees they have control of the outcome one way or another. If you're talking about, can I manipulate someone who's getting an extra $3,000 for this game, that's a lot more dangerous for me. And
Absolutely.
I know referees, like, we always bag on referees. Referees in general love the sports that they referee. They truly love the games.
It's the reason why they're doing it, because we all, if we grew up sports fans, the dream is to stay connected to sports somehow, whether it's media like we've been able to do and others have been able to do, whether it's playing, coaching. Referees are no different. That was their path that was the path that they liked the most valuable path for them to stay connected to the games that they love. Absolutely.
So that's the place where I put are you more concerned with, tomfoolery, with foul play? Are you less concerned, or do you not care? 64% of people who responded to the poll so far are more concerned with the rise of sports betting and it affecting competitive integrity. Only 6% are less concerned. There's a lot of people who just don't care. 30% of people don't care. Probably don't want to know. The referees are the weak link, though. That's where my concern lies when I look at $18 billion worth of revenue and people on the college level that are making an extra $30,000 a year to affect your Saturdays. There's a lot of money associated with a national championship game. A lot of money associated with the BYU-Utah rivalry game. A lot of money on those things. Just something to think about. Fascinating numbers. $150 billion worth of bets were placed in legal sports gambling scenarios in the United States of America in 2024. It has gone up every year that it's been legalized. It's going to be legalized in more and more places. That revenue is going to continue to increase. This year it is anticipated to approach $200 billion of revenue. And the take home for these sports books is roughly 9%, which in this case was $13.7 billion. Not million, billion. $13.7 billion in a year, in a single year for the sports books. Woo! Sean O'Connell Show rolls on. We've got Belle Fraser joining us in about 7 minutes to talk Four Nations. Keep it here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Now's your chance to win a pair of tickets to a Runnin' Utes home game. Utes to 33986. Text Utes to 33986 for a chance to win a pair of tickets. Next Saturday, March 1st, Arizona State is the next game. You can also buy your tickets at utahtickets.com. Text Utes to 33986. Time now for a PGA Tour leaderboard update. The Mexico Open going on, brought to you by Uinta Golf. At Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf, don't miss the tailor-made fitting and bonus trade-in event starting today, going through Sunday. Bring in your current clubs to Uinta Golf. Receive 50% bonus trade-in value towards your new 2025 golf clubs. That's 50% bonus trade-in value for your current clubs towards new 2025 golf clubs. Going on now through Sunday, only at Uinta Golf. James Peterson, what's happening at the Mexico Open?
Mexico Open, we got Harry Hall tied for the lead with some guy named Jay Paul. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jake Paul's ruining golf too? No. Jeremy Paul.
That Jake Paul's everywhere.
No, Jeremy Paul from Germany, maybe a German cousin of the Paul brothers. But Jake and Logan Paul. No, all jokes aside, he is tied for the lead with Harry Hall, 7 under. Isaiah Salinda is 1 shot back, tied for 3rd at 6 under. Brian Campbell also tied for 3rd at 6 under. Looking farther down the leaderboard here for some more recognizable names here. Alex Smalley, not the biggest name on tour, but certainly one that you've probably heard of. He's down there tied for 23rd at 2 under. So some of the bigger names, a lot of the bigger names not competing in this one, OC, and a lot the ones that are the bigger names in this field are not that close to the leaderboard here, but still, just a few shots off the lead there. That's your Uinta Golf PGA Tour leaderboard update from the Mexico Open. By the way, Tony Finau not participating in this one. He won it 2 years ago, taking this weekend off, it seems.
What was on the TV last night when we were at dinner that Tony Finau was like 22 under? What was that tournament?
Yeah,
it was obviously a rerun of something.
Yeah. Oh, that it must have been. It probably was the. Maybe it was from when he won the Mexico Open a couple years ago.
That's probably what it was.
Yeah,
it was wild.
That was wild. I was looking up at that and going, they're golfing at 7:00 at night. Are they in London? They don't do a ton of international on the tour, or they don't do any international other than, I guess, in North America. They stay in North America when they go international on the tour. Usually, it's the majors that they go international sometimes. So there you go.
Uinta Golf's got the great event going on now through Sunday. 50% bonus trade-in value towards your new 2025 golf clubs. Only at Uinta Golf. Tell them OC sent you. All right. 4 Nations championship match is set for tonight. It's USA versus Canada. Belle Fraser is going to join us, Utah Hockey Club insider, who is tonight Team USA Hockey insider. She's in Boston.
Team USA Hockey Club insider. No?
Can't call it that.
Oh, okay.
Don't want to call it that. Team USA Mammoth
insider.
Team USA Bald Eagles. Belle Fraser next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Our nation's face-off matchup is underway, and the gloves are off. Matthew Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel. Hagel skated away as he got back up, imploring the crowd to get even more vocally involved if that's possible. And this start, if you can call it that, have we even started, reminiscent of the old days.
Fights between Team USA and Canada in the previous Four Nations matchup last week, courtesy of ESPN. Sean McDonough, Ray Ferraro on the call. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds, as we talked about. Team USA won 3-1. The rematch is tonight in the championship game. We have the Four Nations Championship right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, right after the Craig Smith Coaches Show. Trying to get in touch with Belle Fraser, who's in Boston, will be at the game. Was at Tuesday's game as Team USA took the L for some load management. Team USA is 1-3 all-time versus Canada in championship games. 0-2 in Olympic gold medal games. 2002 right here in Salt Lake City. 2010. And this one, it means a lot. You've seen the players, you've seen the fans especially really get heated about this. I actually, James, I was texting one of our hockey insiders to see if we could get this person to come on tomorrow. And there's a lot of angst around the political situation with Canada and USA for at least this individual that was affecting the excitement to come on and talk hockey, which is, I mean, it's part of the landscape. We already talked about the national anthem booing, whatever, but for all the Four Nations marbles, USA and Canada tonight in Boston. Our next guest will be there, Belle Fraser, who has become a very trusted voice in all things hockey on this program, joins us again. Belle, welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. What is the atmosphere in Boston ahead of this game tonight?
It is wild. I mean, I heard you just talking about it a bit, but I think coming out of that Saturday game, the Canada-U.S. game, which garnered 10.1 million viewers across North America, which was more than any non-Stanley Cup game since 2014. So this tournament has really put the NHL on a new stage. Viewership is not just from hockey fans, it's from around the country, around the world right now. So the stakes are high. And then you mentioned the political undertones of it, which we talked to the players today. They're obviously ignoring it. They're playing for the pride of their country. They're not playing for Trump or all of the rhetoric around there, but it's definitely something that's being talked about because the anthems are being booed. And Trump posted this morning about, more about the 51st state. So as sports are, a lot of times, it sometimes feels like they coincide with current events, and you think about the miracle game against the Soviet Union as well. So it almost feels like it has that type of hype around it just because people care for a lot of different reasons. But I think at the core of it, it's the best players in the world, best on best tournament, something that the players and fans have wanted for a really long time since the NHL wasn't allowed in the Olympics since 2014. So beyond anything, it's just a really exciting game for these players. And we talked to a lot of guys that have played in Stanley Cup finals, that have won Stanley Cups, that are captains of NHL teams, and they said that tonight is the biggest game of their careers. So I think that kind of encapsulates what this means to players, that out of any game they've played throughout their life, that this is the one that means the most to them.
Which, I mean, if this were the Olympics and they were being given an extended break from their NHL duties, it would make more sense. But the care factor that these guys have displayed, despite the fact that next week they got to get back to chasing a Stanley Cup, is really remarkable. And it just, I think, highlights some of the major cultural differences between the NHL and other pro leagues and hockey players and their mentality and other pro athletes. It really is special to see. And I think because of this moment right now, people are waking up to it, especially in Utah, where hockey is front and center really for the first time. People are learning things about how much these athletes care about not only representing their country, but about their sport in general. And it's refreshing given what we're seeing from other sports.
Totally. And, a lot of these players grew up playing in their national program. basically everyone on the U.S. team was in the National Development Program. We covered Olli Mata. He played for Team Finland, Utah Hockey Club defenseman, and he's been representing Finland on the international stage since the 2009-2010 season in multiple events. So, this isn't a one-off for them. This is a country and programs that they were raised in that helped them get to the NHL. So I think, like you said, there's a different type of connection when you wear that jersey, and these players care a lot, and it is kind of a primer for the Olympics. These teams, the players that made the roster, the players that didn't, will somehow inform who gets to play in the Olympics next year and then 2034 in Salt Lake City as well. So although it's just probably a one-off tournament that they're using this year instead of the All-Star break to get people excited for the Olympics, to help GMs form their teams, I do think it holds that greater weight for them where these players want to perform well because they want to go to the next international tournament. And the players that were left off the rosters gives them probably a little more bite to make it next year. So, yeah, it's really interesting what it means today, but also in the next few years.
Bill Fraser's our guest here talking Four Nations finale tonight, USA versus Canada. Puck drops at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. All right, so from an injury standpoint, how healthy are these two rosters right now? How available are the stars that everyone is tuning in to see?
Allegedly fine. Both teams have dealt with injuries throughout the tournament, and there have been really strict rules where you can call in players to stand by, but they can't skate with the team. They can't really be around the team until you're below, say, 6 defensemen is what you need to play a game. If you have 5 defensemen because 2 are hurt or injured, then the player can come in, but until then, they are not allowed around the team. So that's kind of been the interesting part of this, but this morning, USA head coach Mike Sullivan said that with the exception of Charlie McAvoy, who was a defenseman for the USA, and for the Boston Bruins, they are completely healthy, or as healthy as they can be. He said everyone's available, and their lineup will be a game-time decision. So same with Canada. Everyone's quote-unquote available, and then neither team will fully reveal which players will be the extra forward or on the outside looking in. But it sounds like both the Tkachuk brothers will be ready to go. Brady Tkachuk skated this morning after missing the skate yesterday. And Austin Matthews, it seems like he is expected to play as well. So from that standpoint, with the worries, at least for the forward group for the USA, that people thought were going to miss the game, they seem available, and we'll know what the exact lineup looks like during warmups.
So no Quinn Hughes at this moment?
No. So Quinn Hughes did not end up making the trip because USA has 6 healthy defensemen, so they couldn't slot him in instead of someone else. And then there were things with the schedule where obviously Quinn is in Vancouver and they're going to play Vegas next, and to go from Vancouver to Boston to Vegas when he's still kind of hurt, he's practicing in a non-contact jersey with the Canucks. I think that organization didn't feel super comfortable sending him, and he didn't necessarily fully want to travel unless he was guaranteed to play, which he is not. So that did not end up happening, but it's been a really fluid situation for all 4 teams with injuries and calling guys in. The rules have kind of switched and changed, but in short, no Quinn Hughes for this tournament, no.
So if we can, try to put into words for me the significance of a win for Team USA tonight. If they can pull this off, what does it mean for the USA hockey program, the rivalry with Canada? We could steer clear of the political stuff because that we'll all make jokes about it, but I don't want to get to the ugly side of this thing.
Yeah.
On the hockey front, what would this mean for Team USA?
I think it would mean everything to them. Matthew Tkachuk was on the Pat McAfee show today, I believe, and he was saying how hockey is known as a Canadian sport. It's called Canada's sport, but they're trying to switch that. They want it to be America's sport. And you saw it at the World Juniors this year, US beat Canada, and it's definitely, you look at the prospects coming up into the league and the stars of the league right now. It used to be best of best were always Canadians, and that has definitely shifted, and I think they take a lot of pride in that. And Canada in best on best championships have gotten the better of the U.S. for a while. You mentioned the 2002 Olympic Games in Salt Lake when Canada beat U.S. 5-2 in the gold medal game. And it's funny, Jerome McGinley, who's the father of TJ Ginla, who was the first-round pick for Utah Hockey Club, actually scored twice in that game in Utah, so kind of an invisible string there. But Canada then went on to beat USA 3-2 in overtime in the 2010 Olympics. And Canada won gold at the 2014 Olympics after beating the USA in the semifinals. So I think that's more where the USA players are getting their determination and motivation from. Like we said, it's really less of the outside political noise and more that Canada has owned the international stage for forever. And they kind of want to start turning that, starting at every age group and definitely in the NHL.
Belle Fraser for a few more minutes here talking Four Nations Championship. She's our Utah Hockey Club insider, but also tonight Team USA insider. She's in Boston for the game. What's the split of Canada versus USA fans going to be at TD Garden?
It'll be interesting because last game there it was Sweden, US, and then Finland, Canada. So it wasn't an exact split. You couldn't get a full gauge of it, but there were a lot of Canadian fans there for the afternoon Canada game, which they won. I would expect there to be more American fans just because it's in Boston, but Canadians travel well, and like we have said, this is probably one of the biggest games that they can see their home team play until the Olympics. So I would expect a pretty not even split, but I think you're definitely going to be able to hear both sides in the crowd tonight. And based off of what the Bell Center sounded like in Montreal last Saturday, I can't imagine what TD Garden is going to be like tonight.
Okay, focusing the Four Nations lens on the Utah Hockey Club specifically, a couple of Finnish players, as you already mentioned, did make the trip and participate representing their team. They're not playing in that championship tonight, but for Olli Mata and Juuso Välimäki, who don't get the same rest as everyone else does over this break, but they got to play some good hockey. Is there a gain or a loss here for those guys?
I think there's a gain. Unfortunately, Juuso Välimäki was a healthy scratch for Finland's games, but he practiced with the team and was still part of the journey. But Olli Mata was a really important piece of Team Finland. It was kind of ironic. He filled the same role that he does with Utah Hockey Club. Finland lost 3 of its top defensemen before the tournament even started, which, as we talked about all season with Utah Hockey Club, they were down Jersey, Marino, Sergachev, Bertuzzo, Lamoureux at different points of the season. And Mata was acquired to kind of fill that gap with load management, veteran leadership, and kind of just a steady presence. And that's exactly what he did for Team Finland. A lot of the younger defensemen were saying that he was the guy they looked to because he has played in the most international tournaments for Finland. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and that his quiet leadership really steadied the defense, which had to call in players at the last minute when they were dealing with injuries. So Mata was saying it's not something he really thinks about. He just goes in there and tries to play his game. But I think the Olli Mata that Utah fans have grown to appreciate was the same type of person for Finland. And then he talked about being really excited to go back to Utah because the defense is finally getting healthy. Sean Durzi will make his return on Saturday against the Los Angeles Kings. He has only played 4 games this season, got hurt on October 14th, so that is a huge gain for Utah. And obviously Marino's back and Sergachev is playing. So Utah's top 4 is finally kind of turning into what I think Bill Armstrong imagined it would be in the summer with 26 games left in the regular season. But Mata will probably get to have a little bit less minutes, which will be good for him along with everyone else in the lineup. So things are looking up in terms of that. And I think it's a plus for Mata. He said he enjoyed the tournament. It was the most skill he's ever faced. And I think that just gets him motivated and probably more in pace. He hasn't been on vacation for the past, 10 days like the rest of the team. So I would say it's an advantage.
If you're Clayton Keller and you're back home watching when a lot of us thought, you probably could have been included on this Team USA roster, what's harder to watch? The team win it without you or the team lose it and know that you could have helped?
It's funny, when they won that game on Saturday, I was like, I wonder if Keller watches this or if you just have to stay away from it. But I think at the end of the day, that's another player that was brought up through the National Development Program that has played for Team USA before. And we just go back to that pride. I think you want that team to win. He wants to be a part of that Olympic team as well. And I talked to him before the break, and he said this Four Nations team is obviously a roster you wanted to make. And I asked him if he thought he could make it better, and he paused for a second. And he was like, of course. So I don't think he's sitting there hoping they lose at all. I'm sure he's rooting for them to win it all more than anyone else. And yeah, I think that comes beyond anything. I think pride for your country comes before his, personal pride and wanting to make that roster. So if they lose, I don't think Clayton Keller in the lineup would have changed the fate. So I think it probably will hurt more if they win because he wants to be part of it. But I imagine that's the outcome that him and every other guy that has skated in those colors want.
So from the Utah Hockey Club perspective, again, we're, coming back from this break, as you already talked about, the defense looks like the blue line mostly getting all the way healthy, and that hasn't been the case all year. How much is it going to change the time on ice? How much is it going to change the pairings and the rotation if everyone's available? It
should change it, not crazy significantly. I think Sergachev will have to skate 25 minutes more, which will be good. Turin thought about getting these guys within the 20 to 22-minute range and them being able to play their best hockey within that instead of wasting energy and being tired and kind of having lapses because they have to be used so much. So I think you'll see kind of more even distribution between the first and second pair. Like we said, Sergachev and Marino are together, and then today at practice, it looked like Mata and Durzi were paired together, and then that pushes Ian Cole and Michael Kessering as your third pair. And those two have been very steady together as well, but I think that's good when they're your third pair, that Ian Cole and Michael Kessering as the second pair. Before, sure, it worked, but those are guys that you want to kind of have as your relief and not the guys carrying all the minutes. So I think with everyone being able to have a little more rest, you'll see their own game look a little more detail-oriented, maybe a little more productive too, just because they're going to be playing within minutes that allow players not to be worn out by the end of the game. So I think in that respect it'll be good, but I don't think you're going to see Utah Hockey Club look like an entirely different defensive team just because Durzi's back. I think it'll just look a bit more alive and cohesive.
Have you asked the Tkachuk brothers if they like Outlaws, Mammoth, or Utah Hockey Club best?
I mean, that's got to be the question of the night, right? No, I have not. The media scrums around those two are unlike anything I've seen before, so have not gotten in there. But it would be interesting to pull other NHL players around the league because the Utah guys, I think, have been told not to say anything, or they at least won't reveal what they think. But it would be funny to get some other perspectives. I can get on that. I'm
actually curious, even the random drunk Canadian fan that's there to scream their hate for USA. I want to know what the consensus is among all NHL fans, not just the folks here in Utah. I want us to have final say, or the team itself at least have final say, but I'm curious what the rest of the league thinks. On a personal note, Bill, you're young, you're fresh out of school, you're in Boston covering the biggest hockey game in recent memory. You've done an incredible job working for the first Utah Hockey Club season. Is this like living your dream right now? Are you pinching yourself? Are you taking time to savor these moments?
Yeah, it's been really crazy. It's funny you say that because I was just talking to my dad, and I was standing next to Mark Messier today, who was the captain of the Rangers when they won the Stanley Cup, which I obviously grew up. That was my favorite team, and I got to talk to Chris Kreider, who was on the Rangers team growing up as well, and it's just really, really, really surreal being face-to-face with a lot of the players that made you get into the game and obviously formed my career, and then also just the media faces that are here. It's a bunch of the beat writers that I've read my whole life and the people on TV that I've watched and have kind of taught me the game. So it's really selfishly been a lot of fun being here, and I just feel a lot of gratitude to be in these rooms. I'm really appreciative of the opportunity I have this season and just the experiences I've been able to have. This really feels like once in a lifetime, and I'm pretty giddy going to the rink every day, getting to be a small part of the coverage of this tournament. So yes, you're spot on. It definitely feels like pinch me moment, living my dream right now. And, the best part is after this, I get to go back to Utah and finish out the season there. So feeling very lucky to kind of be part of this piece of NHL history.
Have you taken the time while in Boston to go back to your old stomping grounds at BU?
I have. They play tomorrow night, so that'll be my last game in Boston before I head back to Utah. I couldn't not go back to Aganis. They're honoring Bernie Corbett, who has been the voice of BU hockey for 40 years, so shout out to him. he is such a big figure out here for all of us. So it lined up well, and we'll honor him tomorrow night and then back to Salt Lake City.
Well, enjoy it while you're out there. Go Team USA. Looking forward to everything that you write and have to say about it next time you join us. And as always, appreciate your insight.
Yep, thank you.
Belle Fraser in Boston for the championship. Team USA versus Team Canada, Four Nations finale tonight. We will have that for you on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM after the Craig Smith Coaches Show. It's going to be an intense game. I'm very curious to see all of the social impact of this. You know it's going to be talked about on social media. You know the political discourse is going to try to take it over, and the talking heads on both sides of the aisle are going to try to hijack this thing. It is a sports competition between rosters full of guys who care in the middle of their professional seasons. Somebody told them, hey, you're going to represent your country, and we want you to play hard. And they're playing as hard or harder than they do for their paychecks. It's incredible. It is an absolute treat to watch. It is something that you don't get from every pro athlete. And I think it is a sobering wake-up call and a reality check, rather, for what the NBA is going through right now, because coming off of these last 2 weekends, as we round into next weekend, and last weekend was NBA All-Star weekend, right? You've got a league that is in a much healthier place financially, a much healthier place ratings-wise, even though their ratings are coming down. But when you're just comparing the two of them against one another, the NBA dominates the NHL from a ratings and revenue standpoint domestically here in the United States. And the court of public opinion has been souring gradually on the NBA, whereas what you're seeing in the NHL right now, and I realize I'm somewhat biased because of our level of excitement over hockey right now in Salt Lake City, but it's not just here. I've been making sure to check the pulse of the national outlets and to kind of see the overarching American view of this thing right now. This is a conversation around hockey in the social discourse, the political discourse, the economic, the betting, all of this stuff, the ratings. This is an NHL moment. And if Team USA wins tonight especially, it's a huge opportunity for momentum, a little slingshot, a little upward mobility, a move for the NHL to take advantage of. They're not going to overtake the NFL. They're not even going to overtake the NBA. But for them to get things headed back in the right direction after, a revelation a couple weeks ago of just really bad television ratings, the excitement around this thing is showing other leagues what you can do when you innovate, when you change your mind, when you alter your format a little bit, when you offer a different type of challenge to your professional athletes. And yes, the hockey player ethos and the hockey player mentality is different, so it's more compatible with this than probably any other leagues would be. But it's a really fascinating thing to watch. Can't wait to see the ratings number. Can't wait to see the betting number. Can't wait to see. You know what the ticket sales number is right now? You know how much the get-in price is right now?
Yesterday, wasn't it like $1,200?
It's cheaper today.
Is it? Okay.
But it's $787 for the cheapest ticket. That is an obstructed view ticket in the top of the TD Garden.
That's not Utah Hockey Club. I'm sorry.
They're
ridiculously expensive here too, but not quite that expensive.
Not anything close to that.
Not anything close to that.
So my sister lives in Boston, right?
Okay.
And my nephews are hardcore hockey little dudes. Like they're young.
They love the bees, huh? The Bruins.
They love them some bees. Randomly, the younger one loves the Florida Panthers because they've been so good. He's a bit of a front runner. It seems.
Okay.
They also love Utah Hockey Club now because I got them Utah Hockey Club sweaters and brought them to a game when they were out here for Christmas. Clayton Keller, shout out. My nephew Ike, that's his favorite player right now. It's awesome to see. They have
Ike's a cute name.
They have a rink in their backyard. Okay, my brother-in-law floods their backyard in Boston. It stays frozen all winter long, so they get to skate. And my sister's constantly sending pictures and videos. Like those guys, that is a hockey family. Okay. It is prohibitively expensive for them to go see Bruins games. They've been to one Bruins game because it's so expensive. We are lucky here in Salt Lake City that you can actually afford the get-in price for the most part to some of the less featured opponents for Utah Hockey Club.
When I say ridiculously expensive here, I'm comparing it to what I'm used to. NBA tickets are way less.
There was a Jazz game last week that the get-in price was $1.
Yeah. So and especially in seasons when they're not trying to win.
Correct.
But even when they're awesome, it's still less than $100 usually to get a spot upper bowl, right? So I'm comparing it to NBA. I'm sure other places around the NHL, it's actually, here it's probably deemed affordable for sure.
How much would you? Let's say you have I don't know, you got Scott Mitchell money, you got Spence Checketts money.
Okay.
All right. How much are you paying to get into this game tonight? Because this is a cultural moment. This is one of those you could say I was there when type games.
I'm trying to get obviously unobstructed view.
Yeah,
but I'm not settling for upper bowl unobstructed view. If I have enough money that it doesn't matter that much to me, it's not going to blow the budget. Yeah, I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be on the glass, but an unobstructed lower bowl view. Yeah.
Okay, so in the corner, right above the dots. Okay, this looks like Team USA attack side. $1,500 for $1,417 for looks like a. I'll just click on it. I don't have to estimate. What's wrong with me? Let's see. Row 25, 2 tickets together, clear view, no obstruction. Right there above the dots, kind of in the corner, above the tunnel, so to speak.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah?
Did you say $1,400?
$1,417.
Oh my gosh.
And look, you can't leave your wife at home.
No.
She's carrying your child, James.
Yeah,
don't
absolutely.
be rude. You got to take her with you. You paid $2,800 to watch Team USA to chant USA.
I get a discount because I don't have to pay for the kid yet. So there you go.
So 3 for the price of 2. All right.
That's
worth it.
So much. That's
a lot.
That's double. That's about double what the lowest unobstructed upper bowl view ticket is now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
On the glass, you can't get tickets on the glass.
No.
Those are sold out. Nobody's offering those on the
probably
secondary
$500,000 too, so you couldn't get them anyway.
Who are we talking to that said NHL players couldn't get tickets? Was it Spence?
That's right. Spence was talking about that.
Mark Messier is calling people, "Hey, can I get a ticket?"
The game's not on ESPN tonight, so I can't. Well, it is tonight, but if he was talking about other games,
incredible.
Oh man.
So anyway, very very curious to see the sort of fallout from this. Also, if Team USA doesn't win tonight, the show tomorrow is going to have a very somber tone.
Yeah.
This means more to me than anything that's ever happened in sports all of a sudden. Okay? I want Team USA to win this more than I wanted the San Francisco 49ers to win the last appearance in the Super Bowl.
Or the Mighty Ducks to win the Pee Wee Hockey Championship.
I care about this one as much as I cared about the Mighty Ducks beating Iceland.
Oh, yeah.
That's how much I care.
Team USA Junior Hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Junior Goodwill Games. Shout out.
You remember how nasty that Iceland team was?
Yeah.
You think Iceland, did Iceland, when that movie came out, hate us the same way Canada hates us right now? Because they were the villains of a Mighty Ducks movie?
With Wolf the Dentist Stanson as the head coach?
Were they just what the hell, man? We're a tiny nation. We give you aluminum and geothermal tourism. What's your problem?
That was quite in hindsight, that's quite the nation to make the hockey power next to Team USA. It's like Iceland, really.
Hey, you know what? You know what Iceland is?
Well, they certainly have a lot of ice, so they're playing hockey. I don't doubt that.
You know where Iceland is dominant though? Strength sports.
Oh.
Like strongman and CrossFit. Iceland is the number 1 nation.
Okay.
Wild.
Yeah, they're doing it. They're doing it Rocky IV style though. They're not at gyms with the high or modern technology kind of thing. They're just going out. They're running up a volcano.
Yeah, running up a volcano.
Well, doing handstand running up a volcano.
That also is in the snow. Yeah. Yes, only in Iceland. All right, lots left to get to. Well, actually, not a ton left to get to. I got some tickets to give away. on the Sean O'Connell Show.
Should we do a short tank race update? We only had one game yesterday, so it could be real short.
Let's do a quick little tank race update. And also, how much money would a company have to pay you if they almost killed you? We'll get into that in 3 minutes. You're listening to Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, we're going to give away some tickets here in about 15 minutes. Dropkick Murphys and Bad Religion coming back to the Union August 2nd, 2025. Tickets go on sale today. Listen to the drive with Spence Checketts all week for a chance to win a pair of those tickets, and we'll be giving away Lumineers tickets next. First, a tank race update from James Peterson. A quick one.
Yeah, very quick one. Only one NBA game last night, not a Jazz game too. So we're technically breaking the tank race update rules here. It's usually only after Jazz games or on Jazz game days. But it's All-Star break. We haven't had a game for a while, and we had one that involved one of the top 4 in the tank race, the Charlotte Hornets. They beat the Lakers 103-97. This was Lakers Hornets, a.k.a. the Dalton Connect / Mark Williams revenge game, OC?
Yep, that was the biggest story in sports, that revenge game.
Dalton Connect, by the way, only 3 points on 1 of 5 shooting. Mark Williams, 10 points and 9 rebounds against their former teams, OC? They were, for about, 36 hours they were on. Connect was a Hornet, unofficially a Hornet, and Williams was unofficially a Laker.
Have you seen, by the way, that there's a dispute still ongoing about this?
Hornets are trying to make it so that to force the trade through, even though the Lakers failed Williams' physical.
Yeah, but apparently, according to the Hornets, they're just like, no doctor in America would fail this physical. We've had a bunch of people check out the results, and you guys just had buyer's remorse.
Here's the thing about it. The Lakers are so desperate for a center. Their best center right now is Jackson Hayes. And all due respect to Jackson Hayes, he is not a starting center in the NBA. And he's a second or third string at best, right? And he's proven that over now a pretty substantial amount of time in the NBA. So it's laughable that the Lakers would be the ones going, no, we really don't want this guy. If they found any reason to pass this guy's physical, you would think that they would have, given the lack of center depth after having to trade Anthony Davis to get Luka. But we digress. LeBron, we played the low light earlier in the game, missed his 2 missed threes in the final 5 seconds of the loss. I'm going to bring this stat up again. 1 for 29 on game-tying or go-ahead field goals in the final 5 seconds of games. This is his 6th year with the Lakers in his Lakers career. Just bananas. Because this guy, despite what a lot of LeBron haters would say, this guy was one of the more clutch players in the league last decade and in league history. Very iconic playoff game winners, and he's 1 for 29 in
it's
those
insane.
Situations. Yeah. So that added to it, obviously. The Jazz have increased their lead on Charlotte in the tank race. Hornets play again tonight against the Nuggets in Denver. Bad news, though. Denver is hot. They're on an 8-game win streak, OC. And they're motivated to prove to people that with the healthy core, including Jokic and Murray, of course, they are still title contenders, and they're playing like that. They're playing that way now, so we don't expect the Jazz to gain any ground tonight, but the Hornets did them a favor in the tank race by winning that close one last night. Standings update, Wizards 9-45, Pelicans 13-42, 3.5 games back. Excuse me. Jazz 13-41, 4 games back. Hornets are 5.5 games back now at 14-39. We're not even including the Raptors right now. They're like 8 games back of the tank race. So it's a 4-team tank race update until further notice. And just so you know, as we heard Gordy tell us, the Jazz do not play again until tomorrow, their first game since the All-Star break, going up against the Western Conference leading Thunder. So that should be good for the tank as well.
All right. Thanks for the tank race update. James, if you if a corporation almost killed you, and then they were just like, "Hey, here's this much money. Just be happy with that." What would that number have to look like for you? Would $30,000 be enough?
It would definitely not be 5 figures. I was gonna say it had to be in the millions, right?
Do you know why I'm asking this? Did you see
this?
Okay, so Toronto Airport a Delta flight that was actually carried out by a regional airline called Endeavor. The plane slams down onto the runway, landing gear destroyed. It rolls over onto its side, wing strips off, flames, sparks, everything goes nuts. Plane inverts and upside down skids to a stop. Now, thanks to
the landing.
Thanks to the miracle of seatbelts, nobody was killed.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
There were some minor injuries, there were some more significant injuries, but everyone is supposed to make a full recovery, okay? And this is a small plane, this is like an 80-seat plane, but still, can you imagine you're landing in a wintry airport scenario and the plane just slams down hard, suddenly you're flipped upside down, you've got to undo your seatbelt, drop to the ceiling, and crawl out of the exit row, okay? That's what happened.
Wow.
$30,000 per passenger is what the offer is right now.
Oh, my goodness.
This is the most egregious. Like, you know when they're like, sorry, we got to bump you off this flight. We'll give you $100
Yeah.
of a flight credit. Not even just $100 you can spend anywhere. We'll give you 1,000 miles or something like that. This is
not even enough to replace the flight that you missed. Yeah.
$30,000 to deal with the emotional trauma and whatever injury you may have had in this scenario.
Yeah, that's way too low. Like, I hope that there's a nice class action or something these people have some good representation to be able to hopefully get them some more money out of it. But I mean, 30,000 is better than nothing, but still, like that, you'd expect a lot more than that after having to endure that.
Yeah. I mean, such a scary, scary, scary scenario. I've watched countless videos of it, of the people evacuating the plane. And, really, it's inspiring to know that everyone put on their seatbelts, that those seatbelts are that effective.
Yeah.
And
didn't ignore the sign.
And that the
fasten seatbelt sign.
The flight attendants and everyone, executed the escape plan the way that they were supposed to, and everyone turned out relatively okay. That's really awesome. I'm super happy about that.
The flight attendants, are they part of this settlement at all? Like, they also had to endure something here. Like
that's like a workplace. That's a workers' compensation type of situation.
It'd be a different case, but they ought to get something from it too, right?
Well, I mean, especially you made it worse
even if
for
they're
yourself.
Not injured.
The airline made it way worse for itself by lowballing.
Yeah.
If you just would have been patient, taken some time, talked to people, figured out kind of the damages folks are hoping to get out of something like this, maybe you could have given a more respectable offer. Instead, they're just like, let's see if we can pay him $30,000 to shut up. Like, see if a decent used car is going to be enough to keep these people quiet. And that was the initial offer made. And it's not going to go well long term.
No doubt the press release was how much the total settlement was too.
Yeah,
not 30,000 each. It's like a million or something, whatever it was.
Yeah, even that's not super impressive because it's like 80 people times 30,000. Yeah. That's like 2-point-something million dollars. So it's like, even that's not really fantastic. Airline.
Now this is not Delta technically. This is a regional.
Yeah, it's Endeavor.
But it's one of Delta's subsidiaries.
Yeah,
so
which I think
interesting how that.
Yeah, we'll see how the legality.
Who's liable? Is it just the regional subsidiary, or is it ultimately Delta?
But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, do not ignore the fasten seatbelt sign.
Yes,
it literally saved lives on this plane, and it obviously does in car accidents all the time. So buckle up, Buttercup. All right, we'll give away some Lumineers tickets next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. 2 tickets to Lumineers coming in July to Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. If you could tell me, we talked about the betting revenue generated by legal American sports gambling earlier in the show. I don't need the revenue number. I don't need the profit number for the sportsbook. I need the number, how much total money was bet on sports legally in the United States in 2024. 877-353-0700 for 2 Lumineers tickets. Time for some crosstalk brought to you by our good friends from Advanced Window Products. If you need new windows, if you're thinking about new windows, if you might need new windows, give them a call at 801-850-9100. Local sales, local installation, local warranty coverage, local everything, no middleman markups, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more at advancedwindows.com when you tell them OC sent you. Spence Checketts and The Drive are next. Spence joins me in the Broadway studio right now. Hey.
Are you ready for the Four Nations face-off final? You've got the U of U hockey sweater on.
Yes.
Let's call it what it is.
It's a sweater.
You're ready to roll?
Ready.
I'm pumped for it, man.
I have never cared more about anything in my entire life than Team USA taking down Canada tonight.
Are you okay? Where's the confidence level? Those Canadian boys are ready to roll, man. I've been listening to a lot of sound this morning.
They are PO'd.
Yes, they are.
They're very, very bothered.
Yes.
By the whole dynamic. Look, I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. I expect it to be chippy and physical like it was last week. I think that Team USA's got a great shot, but 3 of the greatest players in the world, like generationally greatest players in the world, are on that Canada roster right now.
Yeah, and it's wild. I didn't know this until I was reading this morning. The streaks that Canada was on prior to last Saturday, they had won 26 straight games when Crosby was in the lineup. They had won 17 straight games against NHL competitions, so, non-world competitions, Olympics and such. And they had won 13 straight best versus best games before the U.S. beat them last Saturday. 2 great goalies, and I'm really curious to see, because usually, like in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the fighting isn't as commonplace because you need your best players on the ice. That's why every team has, the enforcers.
Yeah.
Like our guy Spicy
Not
Tuna.
anymore, though, unfortunately.
Well, our guy Spicy Tuna is not a great hockey player, just isn't. But he's willing to come in and throw his hands.
Yeah, we need these in every sport. The NBA needs these people.
Yeah, NBA used to have them.
Major League Baseball needs these people. Football, I don't know if they do because you got helmets on and stuff. It's a bad idea to fight, break your hand on a face mask.
But it's also a bad idea in a final for your better players to be sitting in the penalty box. So I don't know that we're going to see the Kachucks drop gloves. Maybe the 3rd or 4th line guys, roll in and decide to throw some bows. But I'm pumped for this, man. I'm excited that we have it on the station after the Craig Smith Coaches Show. It essentially is a pick 'em in Vegas. It's gone back and forth. And Boston is a great hockey city. And Canada's goalie was the goalie for the Blues in 2019, and they went into Boston and won a Game 7 against the Bruins, so he knows that crowd. And, I think it's going to razor's edge, man. I think it's going to be a really tight game all the way down to it, and I'm excited to see the overnight split. I bet it gets close to 10 million eyes.
I'm actually really curious what the crowd is like because obviously you would think it'd be mostly a Team USA crowd. There's a lot of Canadians, a lot of Canadian expats. Boston is within striking distance. It's a cheap flight. It's even a drive from some of the provinces. And this is like hockey is their thing. This is their national sport, right? But also the get-in price is not friendly right now. And you got to think, if you're a Canadian citizen living in Canada trying to make the trip, everything's 30% more expensive because their dollar is incredibly weak right now.
And also the tariffs. Should we dig into this for a little bit?
Let's not.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's not go tariffs.
But to your point, Sean, according to Vivid Seats, just levy the tariffs, bro. The average listed price now for this game tonight has gone up by 137%, jumping from $990 on the 15th. It's now the average seat $2,450 as of yesterday. And PK Subban was on the Sports Center hit live from Boston today, and he said that a lot of his peers, pro hockey players, have reached out through representation to try to get tickets, and they're like, no, we can't. Sorry. Like, it's our one chance to generate this type of revenue. So I have not been this excited for a hockey game in a long, long time, and it's great that it comes with two nations that clearly have a healthy amount of disdain for each other and both high-quality teams. So it should be fun tonight for sure.
Did you see PK's lambasting of the NBA situation right now?
I did not.
Oh, my gosh. Make him the commissioner of the NBA right now.
Was it just like the NBA guys don't care the way hockey guys care? Well, he's not wrong.
And he was like, look, if you make $100 million, you better show up. It was fantastic. You know what? Maybe we'll do a little favor for the drive, and we'll find that sound, and maybe you could drop it into the show, because he's talking to Stephen A. Smith. He's talking to a bunch of NBA guys, and he's just filibustering about how, like, LeBron James, you're the greatest. If you're the greatest, then show up and play. It was awesome.
He's not wrong. I mean, look, I feel like my listeners are probably sick of hearing me talk about it, because it's just one of these things generationally. You change the way you view things, and you just have to understand what a sunk cost is and leave it behind. The All-Star game is never going to be awesome ever again. And it's not like anything's going to happen for the NBA players to suddenly feel like they have to show up for work and play hard because of the guaranteed deals, and the money is so stupid now, they don't really give a rip. And the money they're making off the floor. So, you know, like, if you're an NBA fan, you just have to be resigned to the fact that the playoffs are really cool. And as the playoffs continue to roll along, they get better and better and better. But the problem is, like, when football season ends and you're a sports talk radio host in Utah and the Jazz suck, it's like, oh, man.
Thank goodness for hockey.
You know, you've got to stand on your head. So it'll be a lot better, I think, for the local basketball team once the Jazz can get back into the postseason where we actually have basketball that matters. But in the meantime, all this is a product that employs a lot of people that don't feel like they need to show up for work, which is a big problem. And I'll never get off it, even though I'm sure people are sick of me talking about it.
150 billion, by the way, is the answer to the trivia question. 150 billion, the total handle for sports betting, legal sports betting in the United States in 2024. $150 billion bet on sports competitions.
I read a piece in the New Yorker, because I'm woke, that 70% of college males have either a DraftKings or a FanDuel account that's active. 70%, Sean.
That's a lot.
This can't end well. I mean, this is a real issue, and I don't know what you do, because
what are you talking about? It's going to end very well when we buy their short-sold houses. What do you mean?
You mean those of us that aren't going to gamble? We just wait for all the bankruptcies and we just take advantage of them.
All those knucklehead college kids who actually. What am I talking about? College kids will never be able to afford to own a home.
No, not at this point.
No, sorry.
No, sorry, guys.
That was not a good joke.
Good luck vaping or whatever you do, but you're not going to be able to buy a home. And Sean is the ultimate capitalist that will short sell you once you go bankrupt on FanDuel. I think it's a big issue, man. I really do. And we've already seen it permeate into competition with basketball players being suspended. The Javon Porter kid. Was it De'Aaron Fox they were looking at recently? And it's just going to continue. It's way too accessible, and the dopamine hit is real, and it's right on our phone. So it's a problem. Unless you're a capitalist like Sean.
Stay tuned for the Spence Checketts, not a capitalist. Breaking news.
Touche.
Stay tuned for the drive. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. Thanks to everyone who joined us. James Peterson, above adequate once again. Well done.
Thank you, boss.
ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN.